Good morning, fellow educators. This is day 2 of the webinar on Modular and Self-Learning Kit Writing for Private School Teachers. And this is brought to us by the Department of Education Schools Division of Angeles City in cooperation with the Angeles City Association of Private Schools. Being mindful of God's presence in our midst, let us now pray with Ma'am Edna Guevara, Acaps Treasurer.
Let us bow our heads and put ourselves in the holiness of God, the Father, the Son, and Holy Spirit. Dear Almighty and ever-loving God, we glorify and thank Thee your name. You have showered us with so much blessings, and your presence continuously reminds us of your faithfulness and guidance. With this, we humbly ask you to shower our speakers on this second day of our webinar of your greatest inspiration so that they may share the most of their knowledge, heart, and soul to their respective topics. May our participants also absorb the invaluable knowledge experiences and put them into practice what they may learn today. We pray that you bless all those in charge of this webinar from the DepEd Angeles City Division Office, that they may be able to fulfill their task responsibly, and the objectives they have set may all be achieved. Your infinite blessings would mean the success of this webinar. May we be a living witnesses of your genuine love through the enactment of the knowledge acquired through this activity. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Of June 2020, a happy and refreshing Thursday to all of our private school frontliners. Frontliners, as we are at the forefront of reshaping and reinventing the Philippine educational landscape, all for the love of the Filipino learners. And talking about love, friends, we now bring you, they say that love is sweeter the second time around. Here goes for the second time, Dr. Carlito Antonio Acaps, President.
Thank you, Ted. I do hope that my message will be even sweeter the second time around. To the school's division superintendent, Madam Irene P. Tamayo, Assistant Schools Division Superintendent Maria Celina Vega, our division chiefs and staff, other division officials, my fellow Acaps officers and Acaps members, private school administrators and teachers, good morning, magandang buhay, mabuting tao. Yes, this is my second time, which I do hope will be even sweeter. And this reminds me of an American author named Augustine Ogmandino, who said, and I quote, "I will persist until I succeed. Always will I take another step. If that is of no avail, I will take another and yet another. In truth, one step at a time is not too difficult. I know that small attempts repeated will complete any undertaking." For and in behalf of DepEd Angeles and the Angeles City Association of Private Schools, better known as Acaps, I welcome you all to day 2 of our 3-day webinar on Module and Self-Learning Kit Writing. Robert John Meehan, an American educator and author of The Teacher's Journey, once wrote, The most valuable resource that all teachers have is each other. Without collaboration, our growth is limited to our own perspectives. Unquote. It is in this context that this 3-day webinar was conceived through the collaboration of DepEd Angeles officials under the initiative of our Senior Education Program Specialist in charge of private schools, Sir Glenn Sarmiento, and his partner, Ma'am Beth David, and the Angeles City Association of Private Schools. Creativity and power in teaching lie in the design of the curriculum, the choice of texts, and other instructional materials like modules and self-learning kits. COVID-19 pandemic is reshaping our educational landscape, and educational institutions are now promoting flexible opportunities as a way of dealing with this changing pattern of teaching and learning. The trend toward modular learning gives rise to the need for the instructional materials to be so organized and standardized that they may lend themselves well as tools for this modular approach in the teaching and learning process. Based on research, the methodological level of the modular approach appears to be an effective and economical way of developing the knowledge and skills, now the most essential learning competencies. My dear teachers, designing modules is both a great a privilege and a responsibility. This is according to Susan Tuhi. It can be difficult starting out or where to begin, but I am very certain that this 3-day webinar, equipped with our very efficient and very competent speakers, will make it easy, leading you the way, showing you and guiding you how to start and where to begin. Accept the challenges with enthusiasm and zeal. We are teachers ready to collaborate, ready to grow, and ready to learn, all for the students entrusted to our care. We are teachers ready to innovate and ready to develop not only instructional materials like modules and SLK, but also our students' sense of wonder. We are teachers who affirm that teaching is indeed the profession with the most sterling nobility. We are teachers rather, who serve as the highest standard of human conduct because of our high moral ideals and greatness of character. We are teachers led to a great reward, and a school day well spent is a reward in itself. We are teachers, proud, so proud and honored. Again, good morning and a hearty welcome. Smiles bright, serves right. Thank you very much.
Fellow educators, we would like to thank you for your active engagement. Yesterday, we registered around 400 participants. So share the word and keep the tall rising. We have had informative talks yesterday with Dr. Lourdes de la Cruz on the most essential learning competencies. And also, we have had Dr. Emily Sarmiento for social content and module writing. Today will be an equally engaging session together with our three resource speakers, and it's now high time for me to present to you our first speaker. Our first resource speaker is a teacher 3 from Marisol Bliss Elementary School, the Research and Learning Resource Coordinator, and the regional winner of storybook writing. Please welcome Mr. Norwin T. Malonza.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Magandang buhay, Sir Norwin.
Mabuting tao po.
How are you feeling today?
I'm doing well today, ma'am. I'm privileged to be here um at the private schools webinar. Actually, I consider this as a good opportunity for us to introduce self-learning kit. Di ba po ba, we are not really very familiar with the self-learning kit. So hopefully at the end of this session, we'll be able to engage our teachers, particularly the private school teachers, to start SLK writing.
Tama po yan, sir. And the pleasure is ours. Thank you for gracing day two of the webinar. So what are we expecting for your session sa umaga
So
po ito?
So for this today's session po, I'll be talking about the different technicalities on how SLK writing is all about, the different parts, and of course, the different techniques that we can actually apply in writing an SLK.
There you go, friends. Self-learning kit writing, Mr. Norwin T. Malonzo.
So once again, good morning po sa lahat ng ating mga viewers this morning. So let me start with my presentation. All right. So for today, we are going to talk about self-learning kit, or also known as the SLK. So to start with, allow me to start with it with a quote. Stop doubting yourself, work hard, and make it happen. Many of us would probably be asking this question, ano ba kaya talaga yung ginagawa natin ngayon? Ano, hindi ba parang napasubo yata tayo sa profession na pinasukan natin? Andyan yung we have lesson planning, we have IM's preparation, and of course now pumapasok naman yung module writing and SLK writing. Of course, as a teacher, that is really normal, especially if we will be encountering mga new ideas, like for example, SLK and module writing. Actually, let me share my experience before we'll proceed with the actual presentation. Before I was chosen as the regional presenter of the Division of Angeles City, I never had an experience nor training in SLK writing. And then one day, in one of the science event, I was asked by Dr. Sarmiento, "Sir, can you please come to our meeting on this Friday?" That was September or probably July of 2019. So na-invite ako. Sabi ni ma'am, it's just a meeting. Then come Friday, yun nga, nag-attend ako ng meeting. I was surprised na hindi pala meeting. Actually, it is a collaboration sa mga chosen presenters ng Division of Angeles City who will be representing an SLK sa regional office. So I was shocked kasi no training at all, no background in SLK writing, pero bakit ako napili? So I started doubting myself. First, gaano ba kahirap yung pagsulat ng isang SLK, lalo na if it is new? Second, how long would it take for me to write an SLK? So to make the story shorter, I was given about a week to prepare two SLK, grades 3 and 4. At ang challenge pa doon is nagtuturo po ako ng science grade 6. So parang napakalayo doon sa gustong ipagawa sa akin. But of course, even though there was a doubt, ang pinakamahalaga, I tried my best. I worked hard and made it happen. So yun po yung naging experience ko and sa SLK writing, and for the second time around, I was able to present in the regional office again back in 2019. Yan. So let's start with my presentation. So first, let us define what a self-learning kit is. Self-learning kit is an innovative tool produced to meet the standards of the K-12 curriculum in providing our teachers and learners relevant and localized content. You know what? What I really like about K to 12 is that it has these salient features wherein it encourages localization and contextualization, particularly on the learning materials that teachers are preparing. So if we are about to prepare lessons and we will prepare it based on localization and contextualization, I believe that self-learning kit really fits on those guidelines. No? Napakaganda na kahit hindi pa natin alam paano yung pagsusulat nito, at least we'll be able to have options on what particular instructional materials or learning resources that we will be preparing come school year 2020-2021. Okay? So, what is the importance? Bakit ba mahalaga? Why is it important that we start engaging ourselves in self-learning kit writing? First, value time and effort. Students may continue learning even if they are at home. Let me just share my experience on this. 4 years ago, I had an overage grade 6 student. Nag-asawa siya, no? Hindi naman buntis, pero mas pinili na lang talaga niya na mag-asawa. And since it is about the end of the school year, so nang hinayang naman ako. Sabi ko, even though andyan na, wala nang magagawa, we cannot avoid it anymore, na talagang gustong-gusto na niyang mag-asawa, still, I encourage her to continue her studies. Kasi yun nga, I value the time. And of course, sayang naman yung about 8 months na nasa school siya and then 2 months na lang natitira, bigla hihinto siya. So what did I do? I provided her some modules. However, ito yung magiging problema natin if we are going to download modules, no? Actually, napakarami. There are numerous numbers of modules that we can download from the net or from the web. Like for instance, sikat na sikat ngayon yung DepEd Tambayan wherein there are different learning resources that you can download. Sabi ko nga, napakahirap nga lang na if you will simply download a material wherein wala kang idea kung mag-fit ba doon sa criteria na gusto mo, lalo na doon sa needs ng students mo. Even though she was able to comply with the modules, however, there were certain areas of the modules na talagang hirap na hirap din kami dahil nga, unang-una, hindi kami yung nag-prepare ng mga self-learning kits or modules na provide namin para sa mga bata. So, again, if you are going to engage in self-learning kit writing, you will be able to value time and save time, of course, and effort. Second, maximize their participation. As we all know, hindi naman po lahat ng mga students natin ay very engaging pagdating sa classroom. Meron nga ako, kasabay nung estudyante na sinasabi ko kanina nag-asawa, she was very timid, no? She does not want to participate. But one time, I challenged her. Sabi ko, sige, if you will not be able to answer this question, then for the duration of the school year, hindi na kita tatawagin. But of course, very tricky lang yung ginawa ko. Binigyan ko lang siya ng isang madaling question na nasagot naman niya. And from then on, nag-start na siyang mag-participate. Pero, it is unavoidable really na talagang merong mga estudyante that no matter how we encourage them to participate in classroom activities, still ayaw na ayaw nila. Pero, may mga pagkakataon na yung mga tahimik sa classroom, if you are going to engage them on other activities, talagang nagpupursige naman at nakukuha naman, nag-excel naman sila. Like for instance, yung aking 18-year-old na grade 6 student na para sa mga magulang, may kaunting kakulangan sa pag-iisip according to the parent. So, nung in-engage ko siya, sinali ko siya sa isang science activity division level, pinag-engage ko siya sa isang drawing or illustration activity, ayun, naka-second pa siya sa kanyang competition. So, yun ang sinasabi natin, even though they are not very participative on classroom activities, if you are going to provide them learning resources, like for instance, SLK, probably will be able to maximize their participation. Third, topics and lessons they need are already put in one material. Dahil nga nasa COVID tayo ngayon, nasa pandemic tayo ngayon, not all competencies stated on our curriculum can be taught. Napakahirap po na i-cover lahat. May mga pagkakataon, yung isang competency, tinuturo po natin yan ng 2 weeks. But if you are going to write an SLK, yung 1 week competency, you can actually compress it into one or single self-learning kit. And since self-learning kit are intended to be brought home, ibigay po yan sa mga bata, then we can assure that there will be mastery. Depende na lang po yan on how you will be presenting the activities on our self-learning kits. And finally, of course, reduce dependency and passiveness in the education process. Dito na po natin pwedeng i-develop, ma-start na po natin yung mga bata na maging independent po maging independent kasi self-learning kits are self-paced and at the same time as if nandyan pa rin po yung teacher na nagtuturo. So it means even though the teacher is not around, pwede pa rin pong sagutan yan ng mga bata, which means we are developing independence among our learners. So there you go. Those are the different importance, no, of writing self-learning kits. Let us proceed with the next slide. Yan. How do we choose the topic? Actually, in an ordinary situation, we choose our topic based on the least learned competencies after releasing the quarterly exams results. Yun po yung talagang basihan natin. Of course, if the students were not able to master a particular competency, then we can develop an SLK. But with different circumstances, hindi na lang po personally, hindi na lang po ang least learned competencies ang nagiging basis, the only basis in choosing the topic. Like for instance, on our case, Marisol Bliss Elementary School, it is not that big, but we have numerous learners. Biruin nyo, we have only around 13 classrooms with 1,200 or more students. Paano po namin ipapasok lahat ang mga yon with only around 5 less than 600 square meters na space sa school namin. We do not have our own library. We do not have our faculty room. We do not have our health office. So we really have lack in resources. We really lack resources. So nagiging basis po yon, an availability of resources para mag-come up po kami ng mga learning resources such as SLK that will somehow suffice yung kakulangan na mayroon yung school po natin. And of course, at present, nandyan na po yung pandemic, therefore we cannot teach all the competencies. Nandyan na po yung tinatawag nating most essential learning competencies, which is also the basis in choosing the particular topic in developing our self-learning kits. So yun po yung mga pamamaraan po natin, no? Depende na po sa atin, ano pa po ba yung dahilan why we are choosing this particular topic. Now, we shall proceed with the different parts of a self-learning kit or an SLK. So I divided SLK into 3 parts. We have the preliminaries, we have the body, and the ending part. So under the preliminaries, we have 3 particular parts. For the first page, we have the front cover. Later on, I'll be giving you an example of this. The second page, which is the preface, or also known as the front inside cover. And the page 3 covers the objectives and, of course, the learning competency as well as the learning competency code. So those are the different components of our preliminaries. Once again, we have the first page, front cover. The second page is the preface. And the third page, we have the objectives, the learning competency, as well as the learning competency code. Moving on with the body, eto naman po, no? We have 3 particular parts. The first part is what we call the what happened. So this is also known as the pretest or the review. While the second part, what to learn, sa isang simple learning, teaching learning episode, we call it the discussion. And the third part, we have the what have you learned, or also known as the post-test or the assessment part of our SLK. While the ending portion, it covers the acknowledgement, and of course, the synopsis. Now, let us move on with the simple details of every part of an SLK. So let's start. So this is an example of what we call the front cover. No? First, we have the violator. Yan, ito po yung violator natin. Even though, for us in the public school, even though we are already public school teachers, and we are developing, of course, learning resources like, for example, SLK, is still, hindi po kami nabibigyan ng ownership ng mga learning resources na ginagawa po namin. For as long as kami pa rin po yung author, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we own that self-learning kit. That is why we always put violator on our learning resources. So here are the technicalities or technical guidelines in writing our violator. For the pag-aari ng pamahalaan or government property, you will be using Arial for the font, while the font style will be boldface, and of course, the font size will be 8. Meanwhile, under the hindi ipinagbibili or not for sale, again, you are going to use Arial, boldface, but it is a little bigger, which is 13 in font size. Okay, so this is what we call the violator. Another part of our front cover page, of course, we have the heading. Yan. Since this is intended for regional consumption, the heading is the Department of Education Region 3. Kung division naman, probably we could put the division heading. And of course, it would also depend on the private schools if you are going to put the division level, the regional level, or your own headings. Okay? So aside from that, we have the DepEd logo. This one on your left side, this is the regional logo, while on the right side is the LRMDS or known as the LRMS now logo. And of course, there is a particular size lang po. It is between 0.75 inch to 1 inch lang po ang size dapat niyan. Okay? And then, of course, nandito na po yung ating SLK title. Yan. Now, how about the color? Actually, this will be covered doon na po sa layouting. But as an advanced info na lang po, the page cover will depend, yung color po ng cover page natin will depend on the subject area we are trying to develop. Yun po ang dahilan. So that would simply mean that each subject area or learning area has its own specific color pagdating po sa ating front cover page. Yan. Ngayon po, karaniwan, this is the common mistake under the title. Instead of writing a title, ang ginagawa po ng iba, learning competency po ang inilalagay nila. For modules, yes, based on my experience, we usually write the learning competency. But for SLK, we are not really encouraging learning competency as the title. Instead, we are crafting our own title. So how do we craft our title? Something catchy. And of course, we have to make sure that it is related with the topic and make it very simple. And as part of the title, do not forget to write, ito po, yan, itong grade level po natin, and of course, the subject area or learning area po natin. Okay? So there we have yung pong ating front cover page. So we shall move on with the inside front cover page. Yan. So this is actually the page 2 or the second page of our SLK. So it is the preface. In Tagalog, it is the paunang salita. So you do not have to write a very lengthy preface, or paunang salita. Yung mga ini-evaluate ko po ngayon na mga self-learning kit intended for Muslim learners, napakahaba po ng kanilang preface. Actually, I am discouraging writers to make the preface very lengthy. So dalawa lang po yung aking gustong makita pagdating natin sa preface, no? One is the main topic, like for example, this one, ang sariling linangang kit ay ginawa upang maging gabay sa mga mag-aaral sa ika-6 na baitang hinggil sa pag-aaral sa iba't ibang uri ng card catalog. So, from that particular paragraph pa lang, makikita natin who will be the beneficiaries of the SLK and what is the general topic of the SLK. And then, for the second paragraph, ang ginagawa ko lang po, I try to make that topic specific. So instead of writing card catalog alone, ito na po yung ginagawa ko. Ito ay tumatalakay hindi lamang ang mga uri ng card catalog, kung hindi maging ang mga bahagi nito. At present, for 2 weeks, nakagawa po ako ng 14 na SLK. Yan. And yung pattern ko lang po, the pattern that I used in writing the preface ay ganyan lang po. So kaya napakabilis ko lang nakagawa nung self-learning kit ko dahil nga I was able to make or create a system para sa sarili ko. So from there, ang ginagawa ko, nag-i-edit na lang ako ng paunti-unti. So that is the technique that I am using in writing the preface or paunang salita. The next part is what we call the objectives and learning competencies. So this will be your page 3. In 2018, there is a separate page for the objectives and the learning competency. But come 2019, nagkaroon po ng pagbabago doon sa guidelines natin. So the learning competency and objectives were placed under single page na lang po, which is the page 3. So this is the objective part and this one is the learning competency. So baka may magtanong, sir, paano po ba yung pagsulat ninyo ng objective? Okay? First, in writing the objective, it does not necessarily mean that you have to put or to write 3 objectives. Pero kasi in lesson planning, we are actually obliged or compelled to write 3 objectives. Tama po ba? And which covers yung ating 3 domains of learning. Ano po? Yung affective, yung psychomotor, no? Yung cognitive domain. So, kino-cover po natin. So, yun yung pinapractice ko. That is how I craft my objectives. I see to it na yung ating mga 3 domains na yon ay naku-cover po sa ating mga objectives. And secondly, yung technical aspect naman po, the technical aspect in writing the objective, of course, the first objective should be written in capital letter. Like for example, this one, natutukoy. And then it should end with a semicolon. While the second objective now should be written in a small letter. Then it will end with semicolon again and followed by at in English and. No? And the third objective, again, it should be written in a small letter, yung napapahalagahan, and end with a comma. So that is how we write the objectives of our SLK. Next, the second part of our page 3 is the learning competency. So, you do not change the learning competency. Kung ano po yung nakasulat sa ating curriculum, we should adhere with it. Like for example, if you will try to observe my presentation, no, instead of itong card catalog, it is actually in Filipino eh. While here, under the learning competency, it is in English. Naka-italicize po siya. Bakit English? Dito, it is Tagal, it is Filipino. Because that is what is stated in our learning competency or curriculum. So we cannot change that. kung ano po yung exact na nakasulat sa curriculum po natin. Therefore, ganun din po ang isusulat natin under the learning competency or the batayang kasanayan. And of course, followed by the learning competency code. Ngayon, of course, if there are Muslim writers and they would wish to write an SLK for Muslim learners, ito pong learning competency code is not available sa kanilang curriculum. As per the division supervisor po in charge with the Muslim learners or alive. Ano po? So, by the way, the font size will be 16. It should be justified. And of course, ang ginagamit lang po nating font style is Century Gothic. That is the standard or generic font po na gagamitin po natin. Kasi just about 3 days ago, yung pong isang writer ng SLK Alive, she texted me, sabi, "Sir, is it true that we can use any kind of um, font size as well as font style on our SLK?" And then, parang nagkaroon ako bigla ng doubt. Tiningnan ko ngayon ang guidelines and I was correct. No, ang gagamitin lang po natin is Century Gothic regardless of grade level. And of course, yung pong ating um, font size which is 16. Okay po yon? Is it clear? Sige po. Next. So this is now the page 4. So dito na po tayo mag-start. This is where the discussion starts. Ano po? This is the page 4. So the first part or component of our discussion is the what happened. While its Filipino version of self-learning kit o sariling linangang kit is ano ang nangyari. Okay? By the way, just a reminder po ha, the parts that I am trying to discuss here are applicable sa lahat po ng learning areas. Yan po ha. Baka may magtanong, "Sir, intended lang po ba yung pattern na yan sa English or sa Filipino?" No, it is actually generic. Pwedeng-pwede po in all learning areas, in all different grade levels po. Okay po? Even high school, pwedeng-pwede rin po itong format na pinipresent ko ngayon. Okay? So going back with the first part of our discussion, which is what happened or ano ang nangyari. So here is an example, no? I always make it a point that whenever I write the what happened part or the pretest or review, hindi po siya gaanong mahirap. Bakit? Kasi if you will make your activity, the very first activity pa lang, mahirap na. Therefore, baka yung motivation, instead of motivating our learners to continue reading and answering the activities present in our self-learning kit, baka tamarin na po yan. Sa halip na sila yung sumagot, baka ipasagot na lang kung kani-kanino yan. That is why I always consider that in writing my pretest or review. Multiple choice, pwedeng-pwede po yan, no? And then, I'll be presenting another example po ng what happened or ano ang nangyari or also known as the pretest or review. Yan. Tingnan nyo po, no? Again, this is my example intended for grade 4 naman po ito. Again, no, mahilig po ako sa simple activity lang. Ayan. And then this is intended for grade 3. It is matching type naman po with a catch naman. Now, going back with the multiple choice. Even though it is simple, ang ginagawa ko po sa mga questions ko, I make it situational. No? Palaging yun po yung style. Sa halip instead of writing a direct question lang, I make it situational para at least merong very catchy and at the same time, they will be able to relate themselves with the situation. Yun po palagi ang kino-consider ko whenever I write the pretest or the review. No? Yung kanilang mga experiences. Yung mga experiences po ng mga bata. So again, ito po yung another example ko ng aking pretest or the review part. Yan. So baka may magtanong naman, Sir, kapag sinabi nating review, pwede rin po ba yung previous na activity nila? Ang sinasabi po kasi dito na review, does not necessarily mean yung previous lesson, but their prior knowledge. Ano po yung prior knowledge? Probably yung napag-aralan na nila during their previous school year. Like for example, ito po intended for grade 3, meron po posibleng napag-aralan na sa grade 2. Yun po ang tinutukoy natin under the pretest or the review part of the SLK. Not necessarily yung lesson po natin last week. Yun po, just to clarify, the review part of our SLK or the what happened or ano ang nangyari. Okay po? We are trying to assess the prior knowledge of our learners. Second, what I need to know. Ito na po yung tinatawag natin na very simple term, discussion. Yan. Ano ang dapat malaman? No? So, here, baka yung iba, Sir, pwede po 3 pages, 4 pages. Pwede naman po. No problem. Pero, this is the question. If you'll try to make it very lengthy, will it help para ma-encourage po ba yung mga bata na sagutan pa o ituloy pa yung pagbabasa? Yun po yung kino-consider ko rin kasi whenever I am writing the discussion. Unang-una, you are not there to monitor. So, kung masyado naman nating pahahabaan, parang walang pinagkaiba yan sa book. So, ang ginagawa ko, nagbabasa po ako, I make it a point that I will be reading different references and then put all those information into one simple discussion. Yun po yung ginagawa ko. So, how are you going to present your discussion? Be creative. Ano? Do not try to limit your imagination. Sabi nga doon sa commercial ng Cloud9, ang limit mo lang is your imagination. So, try to make variations pagdating po in presenting your discussion. Like for instance, ako, if I'll be presenting terminologies or vocabulary, hindi po siya yung technical definition. Instead, I always write it using functional or operational definition ang inilalagay ko. Kasi I believe it is easier to understand operational or functional definitions rather than having technical definition. Kasi functional, something that they can imagine easily, something that they can apply easily. That is why I always make it a point that whenever I present it using definition of terms, I make it functional or operational. Yung ibang writers naman po, yung kanilang technique, they present their own story. Yan, kwento naman po ang kanilang nagiging technique, no? While others, they put it through a tula, no? Yun po ang ginagawa naman nilang technique. So, sabi ko nga, whenever we are trying to develop our discussion part or what I need to know or anong dapat malaman, we just have to be creative. Yun lang po. So, may nagtanong din sa akin, Sir, what if sa amin naman po kasi yung book, binili naman po namin yung mga books sa isang publishing company, no? Pwede po ba i-lift na lang or kopyahin na lang ng diretso kung ano yung laman nun? Personally, my answer will be no. Hindi po. That is unethical if you are going to lift or copy the content of a book. Yes, yung information na yon, wala nang pong pwedeng maging author ng information na yon. But yung mga wordings na ginamit doon, it is the publication who owns those wordings. So I believe that is unethical, that is against the law. So therefore, we cannot just simply copy what is inside the book, even though they are private books. So ang ginagawa ko, kasi kung mapapansin nyo, if you will try to recall yung mga parts na present ko kanina, wala po doon yung reference or sanggunian. Walang part ang reference or sanggunian. So, you have to make sure that you will paraphrase 100%, no? Non-plagiarize yung content ng inyong discussion. What if, sir, it is really unavoidable na talagang kailangan kaming mag-quote, kailangan kaming mag-lift yung mga ideas ng mga author dahil hindi namin pwedeng i ano lang yan, basta-basta na lang palitan. Paano? Ako naman po, ito yung nagiging technique ko. I use reference footnotes. Ganun na lang po ang ginagawa ko. Just in case just in case na talagang hindi kakayanin na ayusin in your own words, no? Yung mga content ng mga references na pinagkuhanan po natin. Okay? Hopefully, I made that very clear. We cannot just simply lift or copy contents from any books. Okay? So, let me give or present some other examples. No? So, this particular example is, ito pa rin po, card catalog pa rin yan. And again, I've used functional or operational definitions. Now, aside from providing them functional definition, nilalagyan ko pa po ng illustrations. Why? Bakit mahalaga ang illustrations? Unang-una, we have to consider our diverse learners. Meron po tayong mga learners that are textual. Sa pagbabasa lang, kuhang-kuha na. Meron po tayong mga learners that are auditory. At meron din naman po tayong mga learners na visual. That is why I always incorporate illustrations on my SLK just to make sure that all diverse learners are tapped. Yan. Sir, paano naman po yung auditory? Ito po yung plano ko since we are going to have distance learning. Even though I'll be giving them self-learning kit, gagawa naman po ako ng simple video lesson. Ito po kasi naka-PowerPoint na siya. So gagawin ko, lalagyan ko lang po siya ng voice over with, no? Just to give you an idea, dinigitize ko po yung self-learning kit, same content. Ang pinagkaiba lang, nilagyan ko lang siya ng voice over. Yan Yan po yung technique na pwede natin gawin sa pagsusulat natin ng self-learning kit. Yan. The second, another example of what I need to know or the discussion is ito po. Yan again, I've used a functional definition. So lahat po ng pinipresent ko dito, they were already presented in the regional office, no? Sa regional level. Dumaan na po yan sa mabusising pag-e-evaluate ng ating mga magagaling sa larangan ng learning resource po natin. Yan, no? So, this is for grade 3 naman. Yan po yung ginawa kong discussion part. As you can see, all were incorporated with illustrations. Yan, no? So, after the discussion, ano po yung gagawin natin? We need to make a simple assessment. So, one activity, gawa lang po tayo ng one activity after the discussion. Like for example, this one, no? This is intended for the card catalog. After giving them operational definition of the card catalog as well as the illustration, I provided them one simple activity. Bakit simple? Kasi nga, we are just trying to assess, no? Ano na ba yung kanilang nakuha? So that is how we assess our discussion. Then of course, we can still provide supplementary activities. At ito na po, no? So before we proceed with the third part of our body, ito pa po yung other examples ko. This is for grade 4 naman, no? After the discussion, ito naman po ang provide ko sa kanilang activity. And of course, ito lang yung tip. Sabi ko nga kanina, be creative in writing the discussion part. Use different approaches. Sabi ko nga, your limit is your imagination. Wala pong limit ang paggawa ng discussion part po natin. Okay? So hopefully nakatulong po yung mga different examples ko na present ngayon, no? Later on, I'll be giving or presenting one complete example of an SLK para at least you can have an entire overview on what an SLK look like. Okay? So, ito na po yung third part ng body natin, the activities, the post-test, the assessment, or also known as what I have learned o ano ang natutunan. Yan. So, how do we craft or develop the activities? Of course, we have to consider the forces of the 21st century skills present in our curriculum. And what are these? Ayan po, no? Yung pag we are trying to develop critical thinkers, communicators, collaborators, and creators. Sir, pwede po ba yan? Halimbawa, multiple choice. Paano naman natin madidevelop ang critical thinking doon? Or collaboration or pagiging creative ng ating mga learners? So, let me present different examples. Okay? So, this is an example from the division of Olongapo, si Sir Oliver, isang napakagaling na SLK writer din po to. Hindi lang siya writer, illustrator din at layout artist. Ayan po, no? Ang ginagawa palagi niyang style yan. He would let his students to create, like for example, ito, they will be making drawings. Yan. They will be writing. So that alone, you are already creating critical thinking. No? You are already developing critical thinking among your learners. And of course, kung halimbawa, hindi naman nila alam yung gagawin at kailangan talaga nilang ng guidance, for instance, parents or other students or even other teachers, therefore, you are developing collaboration. Yan po ang ibig nating sabihin on how we develop our activities under the what happened part. Okay? Ito naman po yung ginagawa ko. Yan. Napapansin nyo, parang take noting important details lang, pero hindi lang basta noting important details kasi they have to make sure that they understand this given example here, no? Ito pong card catalog. Nilagyan ko lang siya ng isang dialogue box dito just to make it interactive na as if the card catalog is actually talking to the reader. Yun lang po. Kahit simple, even though it is very simple, there is already collaboration between the SLK and the learner. And at the same time, you are already developing critical thinking. Kasi hindi naman siya pwedeng manghula. He has to make sure na yung mga ilalagay niyang sagot dito ay batay sa kung anong nilalaman ng card catalog. Yan. Sabi ko nga, simple, yet you are still developing the forces of the 21st century skills. Well, this one, ito, multiple choice. Sir, bakit tatlo lang po yung choices? Actually, during the evaluation po sa region namin, kinwestiyon din sa akin, Sir, bakit tatlo lang? Of course, the activity refers to the different types of card catalogs. Tatlo lang po yun. So, hindi naman po ako pwedeng manghula ng pang-apat. So, talagang tatlo lang ang po pwede kong ilagay. So, kaya yan. Pero, I suggest that whenever you are providing choices, at least 4 choices po dapat. And again, ito pong aking question is not a simple question. It is interactive. It is situational. So again, kahit multiple choice, I can still develop critical thinking among our learners po, ano? And of course, ito po yung isa pa, ito, arranging the card catalog based on the author. Yan. Dito, madali kung arranging lang ang pinag-uusapan eh. Kasi in English, ginagawa rin po natin yan, di ba? Arranging series of situations. Pero kasi ito, kahit ganyan lang, they will just simply number it from 1 to 5. Still, they have to make sure na naiintindihan nila yung mga authors. Kasi kung hindi nila alam yung pagkakasunod ng mga yan, even though the activity is very simple, hindi pa rin po nila makukuha yan. Okay? And then, activity 4 or pagtataya 4, ito po yung hindi ko tinatanggal talaga. They will be writing essay or probably simple sentences lang. Why? Kasi binavary ko po yung aking mga activities into easy, average, and difficult. So meron po silang difficulties, no? Yun po yung nagiging basis ko sa paggawa ng mga activities ko under the what happened part. Pero ang tanong, ilan po ba ang minimum na activities? At least 4 activities po. So ibig sabihin, you will be developing 6. Bakit 6? 1 for your pretest, 1 after the discussion, and 4 para po doon sa what happened part. So, all in all, 6 activities po ang kailangan nating pag-isipan whenever we are developing or writing our own self-learning kits. Ito po yung tip. Okay? Yan. Ito po yung tip. Kasi you will not be there to monitor your students. So make it sure na yung instruction ninyo ay very clear. And whenever you add illustration, make sure na talagang angkop na angkop doon sa activity at content ng inyong lesson or ng inyong SLK. Okay? I hope I made that very clear po. Sige. And now we are about to move on with the latter part of our SLK, the acknowledgement, which is under the inside back cover. So hindi po yung typical na acknowledgement na magpapa-thank you ka sa mga tumulong sa'yo. So when we say acknowledgement po under the SLK, this refers to authorities. Like for example, under the Division of Angeles City, of course, yung ating previous superintendent, si Ma'am Lailani, and of course, yung ngayon naman, ang present superintendent po natin, si Dr. Irelin, no? Tamayo. And our ASDS, si Ma'am Celine. And then si ID Chief, hindi po dapat natin kalimutan, si Ma'am Lourdes de la Cruz. Si Ma'am Emily, under the LRMDS naman po, siya po ang supervisor natin. And wag po natin kalimutan yung subject supervisor po natin, yung education program supervisor of the learning area. Since this is intended for Filipino, kaya si Ma'am Rochella David po ang nakalagay. If it is for ESP, meron din po tayong mga supervisors on different learning areas. Yan ang ating naging layout artist po noon, si Sir Litos. While illustrator po natin ang magaling na si Ma'am Ida, which is later on, no? Siya po ang magto-talk about illustration. And of course, yung pangalan ng writer. Ito po yung pinaka talagang parang reward natin, mailagay sa acknowledgement yung pangalan ng writer. And of course, let us not forget our superiors sa regional office. Yan po. No? So that is what we call the acknowledgement. Very simple. And last, it will be the synopsis. And of course, about the author, the layout artist, as well as the illustrator. Ngayon, synopsis, a very simple summary lang po ng ating self-learning kit. Okay? And at the bottom, we'll have the LRMDS logo as well as the regional logo. Yan. So, malapit na po matapos yung presentation po natin. So, tip, writing a self-learning kit is a collaboration among the writer, illustrator, and layout artist. That's true. Therefore, it is important that the writer plans ahead. What do we mean when we say plans ahead? Parang sa jeep, ang driver po natin ay yung writer. So ang makakaalam kung anong gusto niyang maging output is the writer. So while writing, the writer should plan the content, not only the content, the layout, paano ba niya gustong lumitaw yung kanyang self-learning kit, and of course, the sizes and the type of illustrations na gustong maipasok sa kanyang SLK. Bakit? Sabi ko nga, this is not a one-man show. Not unless you know how to illustrate, you know how to lay out, no problem. Eh what if kung hindi? So there should really be a good collaboration among the three to make the work of the illustrator as well as the layout artist easier. Napakahalaga na yung ipapasa po nating self-learning kit, nandoon na po yung size ng illustration. At least may idea na yung ating illustrator, anong illustration ang gusto nyo, at anong size. So ang ginagawa kong technique, nagda-download lang muna po ako sa Google. Pero sinasabi ko, ma'am, ganito po yung style na gusto ko. So I put note doon sa illustration, ma'am, this is the type of illustration that I want you to illustrate. Ganito din po yung laki. Similar with the layout artist, kung paano nyo po gustong makita para at least mas magiging madali sa mga collaborators natin yung magiging trabaho po nila. Yan, no? So hopefully yung mga sinabi ko po kanina nakatulong, no? Yung mga guidelines in writing a self-learning kit. Yan. So let me end my quote with push yourself to do more. Do not accept a life of average. Work hard, train hard, and be the best that you can be. Noong pumasok po ako sa DepEd, I never imagined myself na mag-present sa region nor magtutok sa mga webinars na ganito. But when the opportunity came, kahit hindi ko po alam, I always grab that opportunity. Bakit? Because I do not want to live a life of average. I want to challenge myself kung kakayanin ba na subukan yung mga bago. So hopefully, with the guidelines that I have presented, you will be also be able to challenge yourself. Should I be a teacher with a life of average? Or should I be the best teacher that I can be? With that, thank you very much po sa pakikinig at sana maging paraan po ito para ma-encourage kayo na sumulat ng self-learning kit. Thank you very much and have a nice day po sa lahat. Okay? So, before I end, as I promise po, no? As I promise, ito po yung kabuuan ng self-learning kit na present ko sa region. Yan. Baka makalimutan natin. Yan po, yung card catalog. This is the front cover. Yan. So, ang Tagalog po ng self-learning kit, sariling linangang kit. This is the paunang salita. Yan. Nag-move lang po sila, no? Pero intended po talaga ito for the third page. So, this is my entire pretest. Ito naman po yung discussion. Ayan. Yan po, palagi may illustrations. Ito po yung activity after the discussion. This is the ano ang natutunan or what I have learned. Yan ang mga activities. Yan po. Yan ang pagtataya. Ayan. So for activities po yan, this is the acknowledgement, the synopsis. Yan po. So there you go. So hopefully may na-share po ako, may naiambag po ako para mapagpatuloy po ninyo ang pagsulat ng self-learning kit. Ma'am Tet?
Maraming salamat po. There you go. We have Sir Norwin, for that very comprehensive talk on the self-learning kit. Is it okay po, sir, if you will be entertaining a number of questions
Sige
for
po.
our participants para po sa ating mga viewers? All right, yesterday we have had a talk on writing modules
Yes po.
that was given to us by Dr. Ems po. Both the instructional module and the self-learning kits, they're both innovative supplementary resource material for learners made, produced, and contextualized by teachers. Ang katanungan po is, what sets the difference between the module and the SLK?
Yan. Gusto ko nga po sanang sabihin kanina yan during my introduction, what is the difference between the two? For me personally, I would start, if I'm about to write a module, I will start it with an SLK. Actually, they are almost similar. Modules, they have discussion, they have review, they have the assessment. The only difference is the number of activities as well as the number of questions provided per module. Kasi po, sa isang module, the minimum is around 15 questions for the review pa lang. While under SLK, wala po tayong particular number of questions intended for every activity. Yan. Second, if we'll try to go on with the technicalities naman, mas appealing para sa akin ang self-learning kit. Why? Kasi it is in full color. While modules, technical guidelines po sa modules, it is not suggested to provide colorful illustrations. Yan po ang difference ng dalawa.
Salamat po, sir. Is it safe to say then that mas marami pong images sa ating SLK as compared po sa ating instructional module?
Yes po. There is about, if we'll try to range it, yung magiging ano po, 60% po ng ating content is content, while 40% is about illustration. Yan.
There you go. Ito po yung marka ng difference ng module versus po ang ating SLK.
Yes po.
But I think both are working towards the same target po.
Yes, yes. That's
Maraming salamat po. And then we do have another question here. Pwede po bang i-photocopy yung content? I think you were able to breeze us through yung mga copyright and plagiarism issues a while ago. So you were able to answer that already. And is it possible, sir, to digitize the SLK prepared by the teachers? If it
Yes,
is
actually.
possible, how po?
Yes, actually, at present, I am actually digitizing my SLK. Hindi po talaga sila doon lang. I'm not confining myself with the printed SLK. Andyan yung PowerPoint, of course. Secondly, I am using my ebook. But of course, as beginners in writing an SLK, mas prefer ko pa rin po muna mag-start muna tayo doon sa printed materials, and then kapag medyo naging sanay na po tayo, then we can proceed with the other medium naman po.
Salamat po. And another question right here is, what is the ideal composition of the team in writing the SLK?
Pardon, ma'am?
Ano daw po ang composition or ideal composition ng writers ng ating SLK?
Actually, pagdating naman po doon sa pagsusulat ng SLK, very particular lang naman po talaga tayo doon sa technicalities, like for example, choosing the topics. It doesn't matter kung ano po yung magiging composition for us. Kasi ngayon, ang pinagpipilian lang naman po talaga natin is we provide learning resources based on the most essential learning competencies. And secondly, if you will be asking, sir, halimbawa, wala namang kakayahan yung talagang writer na yung nasumulat. So ano po ba yung gagawin? At least we should try writing. Ano po? Kung ano man po yung mga doubts natin, ang importante muna ngayon subukan muna natin, and eventually kapag talagang hindi kakayanin, we can collaborate with the others. But on the composition per se, we need to focus on the MELC and of course, kung ano po yung needs talaga at present.
Thank you po, sir. And then we have the last question.
Yes po.
Anong grade level po kaya akma ang paggamit ng ating self-learning kit?
Actually, yung regional supervisor po natin ngayon, si Dr. Ram, ng English, ano po, he was a high school teacher. Pero during our research conference back in 2019, tinanong niya ako, "Sir, pwede bang pag-guide doon sa paggawa ng self-learning kit?" So ibig sabihin, regardless of grade level, kung kinder man yan, or senior high school man yan, or junior high school, it is applicable in all grade levels po.
It is applicable for all grade levels. So it's up to our private schools if they have their certain modifications po sa ating parts ng ating
Yes po.
SLK. Depende po sa
Magkakaiba
needs
na
ng
lang,
ating mga learners.
yes po, magkakaiba na lang yan dun sa approach ng mga presentation discussion as well as the type of activities they will be presenting po.
That's
Yan.
correct. But what is really a non-negotiable sa ating SLK ay yung set objectives po natin na naka-mention sa umpisa with the competencies, target competencies for appropriate for each grade level. Tama po ba, sir?
Yes. Yes po.
There you go. Thank you so much, sir. And most opportune time for us to be giving the certificate of recognition to you online.
Yes, thank you. Yan.
And I'm back, Sir Norwin.
Yes, ma'am.
We will now be awarding the Certificate of Recognition. Republic of the Philippines Department of Education Schools Division of Angeles City awards this certificate to Sir Norwin T. Malonzo for being the resource speaker during the webinar on Modular and Self-Learning Kit Writing for Private School Teachers held on June 17 to 19, 2020 via YouTube Ingenuity Classroom. Given this 18th day of June 2020 at YouTube Ingenuity Classroom, signed Maria Irelyn P. Tamayo, PhD, CESE, OIC Schools Division Superintendent.
Yes, yan no. So we are done with the first session of today's webinar. So we will shall proceed with the next part, which is illustrating naman. So before yung sa ating next portion, I would like to introduce my partner in SLK writing. Siya po talaga ang nagbitbit ng mga isinulat kong SLK dahil sa napakagandang mga illustrations na kanyang provide. Let's have Ma'am Ida Mercado. Ma'am Ida.
Hello po, sir.
Oh,
Salamat.
kumusta ma'am? Long time na
Ayos
si tayo
naman.
ah.
Oo nga, sir.
Oh, Tapos na ako. Ikaw naman, Ma'am Ida.
Oo.
Ready na ba, Ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay, take it away, Ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay po. Magandang buhay po and good morning po sa lahat. So, so first po, make sure po you already download na po yung the application po, the Medibang application and yung mismong sample illustration po natin. Okay po, Sir Noel? Sir? Okay po. So for today po, I'm going to discuss to you yung some of the guidelines and or the technicalities in illustrating. And of course, yung workshop na pinakahihintay natin, which is the application, which we're going to apply yung Medibang Paint app. Okay? So here po, let's start with the guidelines po. Okay? So as you can see, it is clearly indicated po in the title of our webinar that you are going to create or develop SLK and a module. Okay? So dito po, as an illustrator po, one of the question I always ask is kung anong klaseng learning resource ang material ang gagawin po. Is it SLK po, module, or SIM, or a storybook po? Okay? Kasi po, simply because magkakaiba po ang mga illustrations na ginagawa. Example po, in a module, we use line art. So, ito yung black and white ang itsura niya, pero line art ang gagamitin. And for the SLK naman po, and SIM or the storybook, we use colored illustrations po. Kaya always ask first yung writer or your supervisor kung anong gagawin natin, anong type of LR materials ang ipoproduce. Okay? So now, let's proceed po in the illustration po. So when we say illustration po, it is a graphic interpretation or visual explanation of a text, a concept or process designed for integration and developing learning resource. So dito po, if you want to express an idea po, especially if the idea is hard to explain or describe, illustrations can be a great help po. Lalo na if ang mga target readers mo ay mga primary levels po. Okay? Kasi it is a fact that the human brain functions in such a way that it perceives visual information po fully, quickly, and holds it longer in the memory of the learners. Okay? And then, so what are the things to consider in illustrating? So medyo marami po ito. So ang kinuha ko na lang po is some of the things na most essential sa pag-illustrate. So the first one is to seek the writer's approval of the rough sketch before final illustration po. Okay? So always ask the writer first before enhancing the illustration. Okay, so that your effort at saka yung time will not be wasted po. So ito po yung storybook na ito yung sa storybook na ginawa ko. So nag-drop muna ako and then I show it to the writer kung okay na ba sa kanya yung character na dinesign ko. Okay? O kaya in the SLK katulad ng sinabi ni Sir Norwin, you can ask the writer if he can lay out and write the descriptions or download a temporary clip art sa pinapa-illustrate niya. So dito po, yung ginawa ni Sir Norwin po, naglagay siya ng box here. And then, dinidescribe niya kung ano yung illustrate ko doon. So katulad nito, larawan na nagluluto sa piyesta. Okay, so at least mas mabilis para sa akin and for the layout artist kung saan niya ilalagay yung illustration po. And isa sa mga writer ko po, minsan nagda-download sila ng mga temporary clip art po para alam ko rin po kung ano yung illustrate ko dito. Okay? So, and then, let's proceed. Create illustration that complements the text, not just for decoration or to patch up empty space po. Okay? So, dito po, we illustrate simply because po we want the learners to understand and get the message that the text wants to convey through illustrations. So as much as possible po, avoid putting up an decorations o yung mga illustrations which are not necessary. Okay, para lang magmukhang ma-patch yung mismo mga empty space po. Okay? And then, so suit the illustrations to the learner's age, grade level, and life situations po. Katulad po nito, these are different illustrations po. This is intended for elementary and this is for the high school. Okay, so syempre hindi ma-appreciate ng bata kung ganito ang illustration niya. Okay? So, when illustrating kasi, you have to consider yung your target readers po. Okay? And then, adhere illustrations to the DepEd social content guidelines. I think na-discuss na to ni Ma'am Emily Sarmiento kahapon. Okay? So, always follow po yung social content guidelines. So, dito naman ay, since na-discuss na, nagbigay ako ng mga some of the social content guidelines po. Okay? So, here, avoid illustrating yung mga brand names po. So, for the logos or under the commercial entities po, avoid mentioning commercial brand names and corporate logos in text o kaya in showing them in illustrations or photographs. Instead, writers may invent o kaya illustrators may invent or fabricate a brand in order to fulfill the purpose of the lesson without promoting real-life brand names and products po. And then we have yung sa family under the social institution. So let us promote responsible parenthood po. Huwag po kayo mag-illustrate na as much as possible po, never use illustrations po na that promotes violence po. Okay? And then another thing is yung sa environment. So always promote yung personal and community involvement in environmental management po. Okay? Next po, use Filipino character in illustration if the subject is a person unless specified po. So, dito po, ang illustration po, kung hindi naman po naka-specify, or kung naka-specify naman po na Filipino siya, make sure po Filipino po yung mga illustrations po natin. Tapos po, if ever man po na naka-specify na ang isang character ay anak Amerikano o kaya anak siya ng Koreano, pwede namang i-illustrate. Okay, pero as much as possible po, Filipino characters po, dun pumapasok po yung contextualization po. And another, let us use line art po. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina sa inyo. Use line art illustration po in single color po. Ito yung pumapasok po ito sa module. Sa SLK po, ang alam ko po is colored ang ginagamit na illustration po. So for the module po, line art illustration lang. Pero make sure po single color po ang gagamitin. So kailangan black lang po yung illustration. Okay? So hindi po pwedeng gawing black and white yung picture. Hindi po advisable po 'yon. Okay, and then another is no shading effect other than hatching. So these are the types, okay, and cross-hatching and stipple shading shall be applied po. So ito po yung suggested ng BLR po, yung Bureau of Learning Resource po. Okay, kasi nga, in module po, in public school po kasi, we are using yung newspaper na paper po. Ito yung maninipis na paper in our modules po. So kung ipiprint po yon and then colored ang illustration or may full color siya. Okay, ang mangyayari po since back-to-back yon pag ipinprint, ang possibility po is mabubutas yung paper. Okay? So, laging i-ask din po kung anong paper ang gagamitin. Okay po? For storybook po kasi, ang ginagamit po is mga makakapal na paper po. And for the module, mga maninipis na paper po ang gamit namin. Okay, so eto po. So ang ginagawa ko po is nag-illustrate muna. This is not my illustration po. Dinownload ko lang to for the presentation lang po. So ang ginagawa ko po is illustrate muna sa paper and then scan ko to o kaya is pipicturan po and then pwede ko nang i-enhance in a cellphone po, cellphone application po. Ayan po. Okay, so yun yung process ng pag-illustrate ng line art. Okay, these are just examples po. Ito po yung gumamit siya ng staple, shading, and then always create original po, illustrations po. Okay? Advisable po kailangan original ang mga illustrations po. Okay? And then make sure realistic. Sa storybook po, pwedeng hindi siya realistic. But in module writing po, in module at saka sa mga SLK po, it should be realistic. Okay? And then it should be simple, clear, free of clutter, and suitably proportioned in the right perspective and recognizable illustrations po. So may mga illustrations tayong nakikita na nagpipixelate po. Minsan hindi recognizable yung mga illustrations po natin. So pag nag-illustrate ako, since binigyan na ako ng layout ng ating writer, kinukuha ko yung dimension ng picture. Example po dito. The dimension kung saan ko ilalagay yung mismong illustration. So kung 2 inches ang ginamit ko and 2.5 inches ang length niya, pwede kasi in centimeter din to, depende sa application na gagamitin. So ang ginagawa ko po is nagta-times 2 po ako. Pwede naman pong actual, pwede rin naman pong lakihan ng konti yung mismong illustration po. So ito times 2 ko po yung dimension niya and then magkakaroon ako ng 4 inches by 5 inches po or 5 by 4 inches po. At least po, if i-stretch ng mismong layout artist to, hindi mag-pixelate yung mismong illustration po. Okay? And then po, ito rin po, we should, these are the 2 important terms that anyone who work with images po should know. So, both define the resolution po. The DPI, which is the dots per inch po, versus the PPI, the pixels per inch po. Doon po sa Adobe Photoshop, we use PPI po. So, ito po, usually po, for screen display sila. And then for the DPI po, ito naman po yung dots. Pag nag-print ka ng materials mo o ng image mo, ipiprint niya yung per dot. Kaya nga tinawag siya dots per inch po. Okay, so, pero itong dalawang ito, halos parehas lang sila in terms of the resolution po. Kasi it affects the quality of the image. So make sure po, maganda po yung quality. Ang advisable po dito, base kay sa Illustrator, National Illustrator po, ang sinabi niya is kapag maliit ang illustration, kailangan mataas ang resolution. Kapag mataas ang or malaki ang canvas mo ng illustration mo, yung dimension, mas maliit dapat ang resolution. Okay? Kumbaga, inverse proportion po yon. Okay? Now, eto po yon. Sa gagamitin nating application mamaya sa cellphone, kailangan nating i-edit itong DPI. So yung DPI po natin, ang ginagamit ng Medibang is the DPI, not the PPI po. Okay, so DPI po, ito po yung isa sa mga good qualities na po ng printing, 72, okay na po yon. And then we have the 300 kung gusto mo nang mas malinaw yung illustration mo. And then 400, ito yung high quality printing na. So kung mapapansin nyo, kapag 10 DPI lang ang ginamit mo, nagmumukhang pixelated yung picture. 72, okay na po. Yan. And then for the 300, ito na yung maliwanag na yung mismong picture. Okay, so pakitandaan po ito, yung dimension and the DPI or the resolution po. Okay, next is to create illustrations that sustain consistency of style throughout the development of the learning resource. Ito yung sinasabi ko, yes, meron naman tayong pwedeng pag-download download ng mga pictures. Okay, sa mga, yun nga lang, sa mga free pick site, okay, yun, free po yung ibang illustration po doon. Kaso, in terms of consistency, may mga kasi na mga pictures na hindi consistent. So, kung gusto mong ipakita yung season, okay, sa science to ha, kung gusto mong pakita yung sa season, medyo mahihirapan ka maghanap ng mga illustrations na magkakatulad sila. Okay? Yung style ng illustration. So, ang kailangan dito is original talaga ang illustration mo. Okay? To sustain the consistency. Okay? Yung iba naman, they are using the vectors o kaya yung mga flat design. Ayan. Kailangan consistent ka. Kung ito ang ginamit mo hanggang dun sa matapos yung module o yung matapos yung mismong learning resource mo, kailangan ganun din ang style na gagamitin for illustration. Okay? Kasi kung baga, magiging parang fruit salad yung mismong learning resource nyo. And then another, may mga iba't ibang, paano kung hindi ako marunong mag-illustrate? May mga iba't ibang klase ng illustration po. Okay? We have the clay illustration. Kung familiar kayo kay Doc Gatmaitan, isa sa mga storybook writer, yung kanyang illustrator gumagamit din ng clay illustration po. And then pinipicturean na lang. Kaso you have to use high depth cameras po. Okay? And then this is work of Beth Parocha. Gumamit siya ng watercolor illustration. Isa siya sa mga nag-mentor sa amin during the national illustration ng mga 3 regions po. Okay? And then, you can also use pencil illustration po, charcoal, paper cut. Ito yung isa sa mga pinagawa niya sa amin ni Ma'am Beth Parocha. The acrylic illustration and the other one is digital illustration. Ito yun yung gagawin natin later. Okay? So, kung gumamit ka ng pencil illustration po, or mga charcoal, ay mga paper cut po, make sure po ang gamit nyo ang mga high-def cameras po, o kaya a flatbed scanner. Kasi minsan nawawala kapag gumamit po tayo ng camera, yung mga cellphone camera po natin, minsan nawawala yung quality ng mismong artwork. Okay? Especially yung mga colors, nagbabago po yung color niya. As you can see po dito, si Pepo Tachensa, isa siyang illustrator. Okay? Nag-digital siya, animator din siya. At isa sa mga ginagawa niya is yung clay illustration po. Ayan, gumagamit siya ng high-def camera at saka yung lighting sa mismong backstage niya. Okay? And then, once na natapos ka na for your scan illustration, you can save that in JPEG po. Usually po yung mga cellphone, yung mga photos natin in cellphone, they are in JPEG file type po. 'Di ba kapag nagsisave tayo ng mga documents, makikita nyo dun sa last is .docs o kaya dun sa last, kapag nag-save ka ng illustration mo, makikita mo, it can be in JPEG, JPG o kaya PNG. PNG, high quality na to. Okay? Sa JPEG kasi kinocompress na yung mismong illustration. So as much as possible po, ito po yung pwede nating gamitin. Okay? And then for your digital illustration naman po, kunyari nag-illustrate ka na, you can save that in PSD. PSD po, this is the Photoshop. And then the MDP po, this is the Medibang Paint. File type niya po to. And then the SVG po, and the TIF po. So itong mga ito po, these are raw illustrations po. Dito po kayo nag-edit. Okay, so kapag sinave nyo yung illustration nyo, pag sinave yung illustration dito, pwede nyo pang i-edit yung dinrawing mo, in-illustrate mo. Okay, sa SVG naman po, ginagamit naman to pag nag-animate ka at saka yung TIF. Okay, for the PNG po, ito na yung mga hindi mo na ma-edit na mga pictures o kaya mga illustrations po. Okay, ito na yung na-render na yung mismong illustrations. Okay? Next po. Now let us have the digital illustration po. So these are some of the applications na ginagamit ko po. We have the Medibang. Make sure po na download na po yung mismong Medibang app. We have the Autodesk Sketchbook. Ito po yon. Okay, the Paint Toolsai, the Jump Paint. Itong tatlo, yung Paint Toolsai, Jump Paint, and the Medibang, okay, somewhat related sila na application. So in an Android po, dati kasi, dina-download ko yung Paint Toolsai in my Android phone. But nililid niya ako, dina-direct ako ng Play Store sa Medibang. So, halos parehas naman pala yung feature ng dalawang application po. Okay? And similar din ang Jumpit din po. And then for the Autodesk Sketchbook naman, dati ito binabayaran. So, limited lang yung feature niya. Kumbaga nakakapag-drawing lang ako ng 3 layers lang. Okay? So, ngayon is na-free na ng Autodesk yung kanyang application. So, pwede na rin i-download to in cellphone na unlimited yung layer na gagamitin. Okay? And then we have the Corel Draw. Ito, mga binabayaran tong mga application na to. We have the Adobe Photoshop and the Adobe Illustrator. Okay? So, pwedeng i-download tong mga to, basta babayaran yung mismong application. And then, the other one is the Procreate po. Ito naman, exclusive lang siya sa mga iPad, sa Apple, mga Apple brand. Okay? So, exclusive, hindi sa lahat ng Apple products pwede to. Pwede lang siya sa iPad Gen 6, yung mga yon. Okay? Pero sa MacBook, hindi siya pwede. Okay? So, now, let us start yung mismong workshop natin. Okay? Make sure po na download. Okay na po ba? Okay. So, first, ang gagawin po natin is, kung wala pa po kayong sample illustration, ito po yung illustrate natin. Okay, so pare-pares po tayo ng illustrate para po makasunod po tayo. Okay, so punta lang po kayo sa bit.ly/AC sample illustration po. And then download the illustration po, the rough sketch po. Okay? So first, ang ginagawa ko po is nag-start muna ako mag-scan or mag-take ng pictures ng illustration ko. And then, ilalagay ko yon sa phone ko. And then, enhance ko na using the Medibang Paint po. Okay po? So, paki-comment po kung ready na po kayo for the workshop po. Okay na po? Na-download na po? Okay po. Ay, sige po. Babalik ko po yung screen. Okay po. Hello, Teacher Aika. Okay po, kung wala pa po kayong application ng Medibang sa cellphone, paki-download na po sa Play Store. Make sure po gamitin po natin is Android para po parehas po tayo ng environment and the feature po. Kasi pag ang gamit nyo is Apple iPhone po, magkaiba po yung feature, baka hindi po kayo makasunod. Okay po. So paki-comment na lang po kung ready na po. Okay po. So, start na po natin. So, try lang po natin mag-illustrate. Malay nyo po, malaman nyo po na magaling po pala kayo sa pag-illustrate. Okay po. So, start na po natin. So, proceed po tayo sa Medibang Paint po. So, I'm going to use my cellphone po para parehas po tayo ng feature. Okay, so once na-download na, proceed po tayo. Click the Medibang Paint po. Okay, ano na lang po, paki-comment kung medyo mabilis po yung pagkaka-instruct ko po. Okay pa? Okay, now, dito po sa Medibang Paint, ito po yung magiging environment niya. Okay? So dito, sa 3 icons na 'to, dito possible puwede kang sign up para you can download all the, brushes po. Okay, so para ma-download mo yung mga brushes na kailangan mo for illustration, puwede kang mag-sign up. Pero puwede naman kahit hindi muna. Okay, so proceed muna tayo dun sa pag-illustrate. Okay, so start muna tayo sa new canvas. So click lang po ito, yung new canvas. Okay, so dito ilalagay po natin yung canvas size po natin, the width, the height, the DPI po. Okay, so eto lang po yung mga common na kailangan po nating highlight, yung width po. So ang gawin po natin is make sure po, click nyo po yung edit para ma-edit po natin yung measurement ng width. So dito po, as you can see po, ang given lang po na unit of measurement is the px and the centimeter po. So let us use centimeter na lang po. Okay? Actually po, pwede nyo naman pong i-convert. Kunyari, ang gusto nyo is bandang 15 inches po. So convert nyo na lang po sa mismong YouTube po. Ay, sa YouTube, rather in the Google po. So pag 15 po, around 15 to 16 inches po, that is 40 centimeter po. Medyo malaki na tong illustration natin. Okay, pwede na siya as a whole page in the paper po. Okay, so ang gawin na lang natin is parehas na lang yung width and the height. Make sure po centimeter ang gamit, ha? Kasi po pag nag-PX po kayo, maliit po yung magiging illustration nyo po. Okay. So now for the DPI po, ito yung sinabi ko sa inyo na parang resolution, especially kapag piniprint na yung mismong illustration po. So make sure po is kung maliit naman yung illustration, pwede nyo gawin yung DPI, taasan yung DPI ng 300 para mas maganda yung quality ng illustration. Kung ayaw naman po ng ayaw namang i-edit yung width at saka yung height niya, pwede naman kayong pumili dun sa paper size po. May mga, sa paper size po, may A4 po, A5, yan. So, ang ginagawa ko po is ako na yung mismo nag-edit ng dimension niya. Okay, and then yung color specification, white na lang po, para mas makita po natin. So, you can change the color ng mismong canvas po natin, magiging canvas. Okay, so ngayon, white muna po yung gamitin po natin for the meantime po. Okay, and then once na okay na po kayo sa mismong sa mismong dimension ng canvas po natin, just click the OK button. Okay, and then click the create button. So magpa-process na po yan. So this will be the environment of your canvas or your Medibang application. So, pwede nyo i-zoom in yan. Ang kagandahan dito is, pwede nyo i-zoom in using your 2 fingers po, yung thumb and index po. Ayan po. Zoom in and zoom out po. Okay? Nakakasunod naman po ba? Okay po. So, dito nyan, ang makikita nyo dito sa taas, these are the toolbars po. Yung pencil, the eraser, ito yung pwede mong i-move, yung hand tool, i-move mo yung canvas mo. Since touchscreen naman yung cellphone natin, so we can easily move yung mismong canvas natin. Okay, so ito po yung canvas, yung white na parang papel. And then ito naman yung move tool din, ito yung pwede mong i-move yung illustration mo. Okay, and then this is the gradient, and then ito naman mga shapes to. Okay, yan, shapes to. And then sa baba din, may mga icons din tayo. Ito yung kung ano yung ginamit mong tool. Okay, so since nakaklik ako dito sa mismong brush, kaya ang makikita kong tool dito is the brush pen po. Okay, sa baba po, ito po yung mga hi-highlight natin. Ito po, this is the layer. Once na kinlik ko po yung layer, yan po yung mga layers. Diyan po tayo mag-illustrate. Yun nga lang po, pag nag-illustrate po tayo, we're going to use different layers po. So, kumbaga, isa-separate po natin yung rough sketch po natin. yung line art po natin, and the color. So magkakaibang layer po ang gagamitin natin doon. Okay? So next po, so tandaan po to, this is the layer button po. And ito naman po is the color palette. Sa color palette po, nandyan din yung mga colors. Pwede po kayong gumawa ng mga colors nyo. Okay, pumili ng mga colors nyo. And then, as you can see po, may mga makikita din kayong mga brush pens po. This will be your brush pens po. Okay, medyo marami po yung brush pens ko kasi dinownload ko po ito sa mismong cloud ng Medibang. So once na naka-login na po kayo, nakapag-sign up na po kayo, pwede kayong mag-download ng mga brush pen po sa cloud niya. May mga standard po at may mga cloud po. Okay, so later na lang po iyon. Okay, so para makapunta po kayo sa cloud, just i-press nyo po itong button na to, yung plus sign. Okay, so now for the meantime po, ang gamitin natin is yung pen sharp po. Yes po, Sir Drew Cruz, pwede po sa PC. May Medibang Paint naman po in the computer po. So pwede nyo pong i-download yon. Okay? Okay, now. So maging familiar po tayo doon sa mga color po natin. Ito po yung magiging, dito po tayo pipili ng color po. So this will be your hue. Ito po yung maraming color. So pwede nyo i-adjust yan by dragging down o kaya dragging up. Okay? Makikita nyo yung mismong color nyo dito sa mismong dot na to. Okay? Sa circle na to. Okay? And then, ito naman, dito sa part na to, this is the saturation po. So, yung saturation po, okay, the higher you set it, the more vivid yung color. Okay? Kaya, ayan po. So, pwede nyo i-adjust yan, move up o kaya move down nyo po. So, nasa inyo po kung anong gusto nyo po. Okay? Ayan po. Makikita nyo po dito mismo yung color na set nyo. Okay? Okay po. Next po. Ito naman po is the brightness po. So, nasa atin po kung pwede natin, gusto natin ng dark, kaya yung medyo bright po siya. Okay? So, pwede yung adjust yan. Parang nagtitimpla lang po tayo ng pintura. Okay po. Next po. Okay po. So, ang gagawin na po natin yan is punta po tayo sa layer. Let us import the picture po. Yung pinicturean natin or dinownload yung sample illustration po. Okay, so punta po tayo sa layer. Nakakasunod po ba? And then click the plus sign. Ito po yung plus sign. Kung gusto po natin mag-import ng mga pictures o kaya maglagay ng panibagong layer po. So once na kinlik ko po yan, may lilitaw na drop-down menu po. So, mapapansin nyo po yung color layer, 1-bit layer, hanggang doon sa stencil layer. So, ang gagamitin lang po natin dyan, yung color layer, at saka po yung select an image to add, and then, o kaya add an image by taking a photo. Okay? So, since na-download naman po natin yung illustration po, okay, punta po tayo doon sa select an image to add. So, import na po natin yung mismong illustration. Okay po. So, ang gagawin po natin is, punta lang po kayo dun sa mismong camera nyo. Kung hindi nyo po makita yung mga images nyo po, pwede nyong iselect yung tatlong lines na to, and then go to the images po. Okay? So, hanapin nyo na lang po yung illustration. Pwede pong nasa camera po nyo yon. Yung sa akin kasi, tinransfer ko sa drawing. Yan. So, then, select ko yung mismong illustration po. Nakasunod po ba? Okay, so ngayon yan, once na na-select ko na yung mismong illustration po, pwede na po nating i-magnify po yon, lakihan yung mismong illustration. So, o kaya minsan, pwede rin nating ayusin yung angle niya. Kung naka-slide naman po siya, yan, pwede nyo pong i-click yung angle. Okay? And then, dito naman sa baba, ito yung magnification kung gusto mong lakihan yung illustration mo. So, it's up to you kung gusto mo ng full yung illustration. Okay. Once na naging okay na po kayo sa mismong size ng mismong image niyo po, iset niyo na lang po yun. So, click the set button. Magpo-process po yan. And then, meron pong box na nagtatanong kung extract the line art. So, ang gawin lang po natin is just click the no. Okay. So, ngayon yan, meron na tayong 2 layers po. Okay? So, pwede po nating i-rename yung layer natin para hindi po tayo nalilito kung ano po dyan ang sketch, alin po dyan ang color. Okay? So, i-rename po natin. Pag nagre-rename po tayo, i-click lang po itong gear na icon. So, yan, lilitaw yung layer 2. Then, change po natin siya as sketch or rough sketch po. Okay, and then set. Okay na po? Okay, so since wala naman po nagko-comment, so ibig sabihin po is mukhang nakakasunod naman po kayo. So yung rough sketch po natin, kapag nag-illustrate po tayo, okay, balik po ako doon sa layer 1. I-click ko kung saan ako mag-illustrate. Okay, kung nasa layer 1 ako, magdo-drawing ako, try lang po ito Ayan po, nagdo-drawing na po ako niyan pero hindi nakikita. Simply because po, yung aking layer po, kung mapapansin nyo, meron pong line dun sa layer 1. Ito po yung in-illustrate ko kanina, drawing kanina, na hindi lumitaw. So, ibig sabihin po nun is natatakpan po ng rough sketch yung mismong layer 1 ko po. So, ganun po ang ibig sabihin ng mga layers. So, kaya nagle-layer tayo. So, ibig sabihin po, yung rough sketch po natin, dapat nasa baba siya ng layer 1. So, ang gagawin natin is click the rough sketch. And then, meron arrow dito sa baba. Okay, so arrow down. Click po natin yung arrow down para bumaba yung mismong layer natin. Ayan. Okay? So, kung papakita ko yan, babalik ako sa canvas ko. Makikita nyo na yung na-illustrate kanina. Okay po. So, ibig sabihin nun, yung line na yon is nasa taas na siya ng rough sketch. Okay po. So, erase ko po niyan, yung mismong, kiklik ko po yung layer 1 para ma-erase ko po yung line na ginawa ko. Kapag nag-i-erase ako, hindi na-i-erase yung mismong rough sketch po. Kasi nga, naka-layer tayo. So, ang na-erase lang yan is yung layer 1. Okay? So, next po, pasensya na po. Next po is punta po tayo sa layer 1. Make sure po nakaselect yung layer 1 kasi nga, mag-i-illustrate na tayo using the line art po. Okay? So, balik po tayo sa canvas. Ayusin muna po natin. Nasa inyo po kung gusto nyo zoom in or zoom out po. And then, i-click po natin yung mismong pencil. Yun dito po, sa baba. Click po natin yung pencil. This will be your brush pen po. And then, isa-select po natin yung brush pen na gusto natin. So, saan ko makikita yung brush pen? Okay, yung mga types of brush pen po. Pupunta po tayo dito sa palette. And then, select yung mismong brush pen na gusto nyo. Ang ginagamit ko lang dyan is yung pencil, pen, at saka yung pen sharp. Okay? So for coloring naman po, I'm using yung airbrush po, at saka yung mismong pen. So ngayon, since line art naman po yung gagawin natin, ang gamitin na lang po natin is yung pen sharp. Anong kaibahan ng pen dun sa pen sharp? Yung pen sharp kasi is once na nag-illustrate ka ng line, okay, inaayos niya. Para siyang Adobe, parang gumamit ka ng Adobe Illustrator. Okay, so try natin. Pag nag-illustrate ako, So, dito po pala yung mismong size ng pen natin dito sa PX po. Okay, lakihan ko muna yung size ng pen ko, brush pen po. So, kapag nag-illustrate ako, inaayos niya yung mismong line. Okay? So, balik ako dun sa mismong palette. Try natin yung pen. Sa pen naman, ito nasa inyo kung paano nyo gagawin yung line. So, susundin niya yung mismong fingers nyo kung saan pumupunta. Okay? Hindi niya inaayos yung mismong line. Okay? So, ngayon yan, i-undo ko to. Babalik ko doon sa original. Balik tayo doon sa palette. Doon sa pen sharp po. Okay? So, you can adjust yung brush pen nyo dito mismo by simply dragging down and dragging up po. So, pag nag-drag down ako, lumiliit yung brush pen ko. Pag nag-drag up ako, lumalaki yung brush pen ko. Okay, hanggang 300 lang yung mismong size ng brush pen dito. Hindi katulad sa kapag computer ang gamit. Okay, so i-drag ko yon down. Piliin ko kung anong gusto kong width ng mismong line. Okay, so ang gagamitin ko is lakihan ko yung width, 80. And then, paki-check po kung nasa tamang layer po kayo. So, punta po kayo doon sa layer. Make sure po, wala po kayo doon sa rough sketch. Hindi nakaselect yung rough sketch. Kasi kung nasa rough sketch po kayo, okay, hindi po natin matatanggal yung mismong rough sketch nun. So, dapat nasa layer 1 po kayo. Okay po? So now, let us illustrate. Ang illustrate muna natin is yung head na lang muna kasi I only gave, they only gave me 1 hour to present itong workshop na to. Okay, so illustrate na natin. Head na muna ang illustrate natin. So start na po natin. So pag nagkamali kayo, ando-ando lang. So, click lang yung undo if you are not satisfied po dun sa mismong line. Okay? Masasanay din po kayo sa mismong pag-drawing using your phone po. Nung una din po, medyo hindi ko masyadong hiyang yung sa cellphone. Ang gamit ko po kasi is yung mouse ng laptop po. So, ando lang kung hindi kayo satisfied sa nagawa nyong line. Yan. Start na kayong mag-illustrate. So, pwede nyo i-rotate yung mismong canvas nyo. Nasa inyo po. Kung saan kayo mas hiyang. I-adjust ko yung mismong. Okay po. And then, proceed tayo sa kilay. Ninipisan ko yung mismong line ng kilay. And then yung nose. And yung bibig niya. And then yung eyes niya. And then doon sa baba ng eyes niya, ninipisan ko yung lines. Gagawin ko siya in either 4 or 6, ay try natin ng 10 or 8. Yan. Okay po. And then, papalitan ko yung mismong brush ko for the eyeball po. Okay. So, click ko lang ulit yung palette. Balik ako sa pen. I-adjust ko yung size, brush pen ng size. Yan. Yan. Okay na po? Na-illustrate na po ba yung line art? Okay, now po is tatanggalin na po natin yung rough sketch po natin, temporarily po. So, balik po tayo sa mismong layer. At kung mapapansin nyo, may mga eyes dito. So, yung eyes na yan, nagiging invisible yung mismong layer nyo. So, once na-click nyo to, once na-click natin yung sa rough sketch, magiging invisible yung mismong layer natin. Okay? So, balik tayo sa canvas, mapapansin nyo na nawala yung mismong rough sketch natin. Okay? So, yun lang ang gagawin natin. So, kiniklik nyo lang yung eyes para mawala. So, kung gusto nyo ibalik, i-click ulit. Ayan, babalik yung mismong rough sketch. So, since hindi na natin kailangan yung rough sketch, so, invisible na natin yung eye. So, magko-color na tayo. Nakakasunod po ba? Okay. So, mag-a-add na naman tayo ng panibagong layer po. So, para mag-add po ng panibagong layer, for the color naman, is just click yung plus sign. And then, color layer po tayo. So, kasi pag 1 bit, yung ano lang yon, black and white lang yon. So, ang gagamitin natin is color layer po. So, click the color layer. So, magkakaroon tayo ng 3 layers po. So, yung layer na to is, since color yung layer na yan, ilalagay natin siya dun sa baba ng layer 1. Kasi, pag nasa taas yung color layer, matatakpan yung mismong line art natin. Okay? So, ibababa ulit natin yung layer 3. Okay, sa baba ng mismong layer 1. So, select lang natin yung arrow down para bumaba yung mismong layer. Basta select nyo yung layer 3 and then arrow down po. Okay? Okay, next po is magkukulay na tayo. So, start muna natin sa face. So, color natin yung face. Tayo ng color ng face. So, skin tone po is nasa bandang taas po. Dito, select nyo muna to. And then, adjust the saturation and the brightness po. So, adjustin mo na yung brightness and then saturation po. Kapag okay na kayo dito sa mismong color na nasa baba, pwede na kayo mag-color. Okay? Pero palitan nyo muna yung brush pen nyo. Gawin nyo into pen. Kasi mahirap mag-color using the pen sharp po. Okay? Ginagamit lang ang pen sharp kapag sa line art. So, gamitin po natin yan for the coloring, yung pen brush. Okay. So, color na natin. Nag-back up po. Automatic po nagba-back up po yung illustration natin. Okay. So, adjust ko yung mismong brush pen natin. Then, i-color ko na sa mismong face. So, kung medyo matagal to kapag maliit yung brush, para mabilis. Okay? Ayan po. Para lang tayong grade 1 na nagko-color. Nag-enjoy naman po ba? Ito rin po yung tinuro ko sa mga public school teachers sa mga elementary po. Akala po nila hindi nila kaya mag-illustrate po. Nung nalaman nila yung mismong application po na pwede po pala sa cellphone, yun, nag-enjoy na po sila at hindi na sila tumigil sa kaka-drawing po, kaka-illustrate. Yan po. Okay. Okay. Now, once na na-color nyo na yung face po, balik tayo sa mismong layer button. Pwede natin palitan ito ng yung kanyang name ng face color para alam po natin kung anong layer yon. Baka ma-erase po kasi natin yung layer. Okay? Ayan, face color po. Okay, now, dun naman tayo sa hair. So, dito niyan, pwede naman pong kulayan yung mismong hair kasama dun sa mismong layer ng face color po. Kaso, ang mas maganda po is separate po yung layer. Para if ever hindi ko magustuhan yung color ng hair, madali kong madidelete yung mismong layer. Okay? So, ang gagawin po natin is mag-a-add na naman tayo ng panibagong layer. So, click the plus sign and then go to the color layer. So, ito naman, yung color ng hair, pwede naman siya nasa taas ng face color o kaya nasa baba. Basta't lagi siyang nasa baba ng layer 1 or the line art. Okay? So, let us color the hair. Adjust na since gusto ko is color black, yung mismong layer. Yung i-adjust ko na lang nun is the brightness, yung sa baba. Ito po. So, black po ang gagamitin natin color. Okay, so kulayan na. You can adjust naman po yung mismong brush pen nyo. Kung nagkamali po kayo sa pag-color, just click lang po yung undo button para hindi na po kayo nag-i-erase. Ayan po. Okay, next po is yung kilay naman po. Okay, yung other kilay naman po. Okay, so naset na yung hair color and yung face color po. So, palitan po natin yung name ng layer 4. Gawin natin hair color po. Okay. And then, as you can see po, yung mismong eyes natin, medyo pale po yung pagkaka-color. So, bigyan po natin ng white part yung eyes. So, pagbibigyan po ng white part po yan, balik lang po kayo doon sa layer and then mag-add na naman ng panibagong layer po. Basta kapag lalagyan na ng white part yung mismong eyes, lagi siyang nasa taas ng face color. Okay, so plus and then color layer. And then select yung mismong saturation. And then yung brightness, the saturation, lagay lang sa taas. And the brightness po sa baba. Okay? Yes po, Sir Rodel, pwede pong i-download yan. Punta lang po kayo sa Medibang o kayo sa mismong Google po. Tapos i-type nyo lang po yung Medibang app, free download po. So pwede naman pong i-download dyan in the MacBook po o kaya sa mismong computer po sa Windows. Free lang po yung application. Okay? Even yung sketchbook po, meron din po. Yan po. So kulain po natin. Yan. Okay. Yun nga lang medyo mukhang blanco yung mismong eyes niya. So, bigyan lang natin ng konting white dun sa black portion ng eyes niya. So, ang gagawin lang natin is, di ba yung black portion ng eyes is nandun sa layer 1, dun sa line art. So, ang gagawin po natin is, punta tayo dun sa layer 1 and then click color layer again. Make sure po yung white portion, yung parang ilalagay natin dun sa mismong black portion ng eyes, is nasa taas ng layer 1 or the line art. Okay? So, balik tayo. Bigyan natin ng white portion para hindi naman mukhang blanco yung eyes. Ayan. So, lalagyan lang natin ng white. Pati dun sa kabila. Para magmukha namang masaya yung illustration. Okay? Medyo kulang pa. Okay? Ngayon, bigyan naman natin ng medyo parang slight na design din. Punta ulit tayo dun sa layer and then color layer din. Basta nasa taas ito ng line art. And then balik tayo dun sa pen sharp. Okay? Gawin lang natin bigyan lang natin ng line dito. So, you can adjust that kung anong gusto nyo. Yan, okay na sa akin to. Yan. Yun nga lang, gusto ko medyo bumaba yung opacity, hindi ganun ka-white. So, i-edit natin yung opacity layer. Okay, balik lang tayo dun sa mismong layer. Nakaselect yung mismong layer 7 po. That is yung ginamitan yung last na layer na ginamit natin. So, change lang po natin yung opacity. Wait po, nawawala yung aking, ayan. So, change lang natin yung opacity. Nakasunod po ba? Click lang po yung edit sa opacity. Nandito po sa may taas ng layer button po. Layer menu po, rather. So, click lang po natin to. So, adjust lang natin yung opacity. Kung mapapansin nyo, nag-a-adjust yung color, yung opacity, naging opaque yung mismong color natin. Okay? So, nasa inyo po kung anong gusto nyo dyan. And then, iset na po natin. Okay, so 64 ang opacity yung ginamit ko. Pwede rin pong i-download sa iPad po. Okay. Next. Kung gusto natin bigyan ng medyo design, yung gusto nyo bigyan ng blush on, pwede rin po. O kaya gusto nyo bigyan ng parang highlight. Okay. Ang gagawin lang po natin is balik dun tayo sa layer. Bigyan lang natin ng highlight yung mismong face niya. So, punta po kayo sa face color and then mag-a-add po tayo ng color layer. Okay, balik tayo sa canvas. Opo, sa iOS po is iba po yung feature niya. Kaya much better po kung Android muna po yung gamitin. Pero halos similar naman po yung mga tools na ginagamit. Okay, so ang gagawin po natin is kukunin natin yung color ng mismong skin. So, click lang po yung color picker. Ayan po. Ito po. Nandito po sa may bandang katabi po ng mismong pencil. So, click lang po yon and then select natin dun sa mismong face, sa color ng face po. At yun po yung susundan na color. Okay? Ngayon, ang gagawin natin is, i-highlight natin, medyo i-darken pala natin. Kumbaga magkakaroon siya ng shadow sa loob. So, pwede lang po ito pag sa mga storybook po at saka sa SLK po. So, adjust lang po natin. Okay? And then, pwedeng gumamit kayo ng pen sharp o kaya ng pen. Actually po, pwede rin po siya sa iPhone po. May mga kasama po akong teacher na ginagamit po nila sa iPhone po. So, kahit wala po siyang pen or stylus po, nakakapag-illustrate po siya. Hindi katulad po sa Photoshop, kailangan mo munang bumili ng pen tab mo para makapag-illustrate ka. Okay? Ayan. So, pwede kong i-highlight yan. And then, lagay ko rin dito sa ilalim ng mata, ay sa taas ng mata. Lagyan ko rin. Ay, medyo nagkaroon ng eye bags. Nasanay lang po, ma'am. Sanay lang po ito. Nung dati din po, hindi po ako sanay na gamitin yung aking cellphone po. Ang gamit ko po is Photoshop po. And then, ang gamit ko nun is mouse. Medyo nahirapan po ako doon. So, naghanap po ako ng way ko para makapag-drawing ng mas mabilis. Kasi dati, in the storybook po, na-challenge po ako kay Sir Noel na sumali dun sa storybook writing contest po. So, meron akong 2 ginawang book doon, storybook po. So, ang deadline is napaka-ikse ng time ng paggawa ng illustration. Tapos 2 ang aking illustrate na storybook. So, gumawa ako ng way ko para mabilis ako makapag-illustrate. And that is, natuklasan ko yung paggamit ng cellphone po. So, mabilis po ako hanggang nasanay po ako sa paggamit ng cellphone po. So, sanayan lang po ito. May mga kasama din po ako na hindi po talaga nag-illustrate. Pero dahil sa practice po, continuous ang practice po nila, is natuto na rin po. At kaya na po nilang gumawa ng sarili nilang SLK po. At saka mga learning resources po. Okay, so dito niyan, pwede kong palitan yung pen ko, ay yung brush pen ko po. Para hindi po ako mahirapan. Ayan. So, pwede nyo rin po i-adjust yung opacity para hindi masyadong orange yung highlight niya po. Ayan. You can adjust the opacity po. Ayan. Gusto ko medyo dark. Okay? Yan po. Pwede rin nyo rin pong bigyan ng highlight yung hair. I mean, pwede nyo bigyan ng parang shadow, highlight yung hair na parang may white. Okay, ganun din po yung gagawin niyo. Katulad ng ginawa po natin dun sa face po. So, punta lang kayo dun sa hair color and then plus color layer po. Then, gusto kong bigyan ng white. Parang highlight niya lang. Parang kumikintab yung hair niya. So, pwedeng pen. Adjust ko to. Yan. Masyado makapal. Then, erase ko na lang yung sobra. Ay. Yan. Dito rin sa kabila. Yung excess, pwedeng erase. And then, masyadong makintab. So, change ko yung opacity size. Opo, practice lang po. Usually po, ang opacity nito is nasa 17. 10 to 17 po, or 10 to 20 po. So, set lang po. Yan. So, that will be our illustration po. Ayan, kusa po yung nagbabackup. Pero as much as possible po, lagi po kayo nagsisave. Just click lang po yung save dito. Okay, baka po kasi biglang mag-lag yung cellphone nyo po, lalo na kapag Sobrang laki ng illustration po. Ma'am Marlene, sana yan lang po. Practice lang po. Okay? Now, let us save. Kapag tapos na po kayo, isa-save na po natin yung illustration. So, paano po yung pag-save? Nasa atin po kung gusto nating i-save yan ng may background, white background, or walang color ng background. So punta lang po kayo dito para ma-save na po natin or ma-render na po yung mismong illustration natin. Yung sa baba, click lang po yon. And then, you can export your files. So, dalawa lang po yung pwedeng pang-export dito, the PNG and the JPEG files po. So, export lang po natin. Yan. So, meron kayong tatlong file format. May PNG, dalawa yung klase niya. Yung PNG na meron pa rin siyang white background. Same with the JPEG po, the JPG po. At meron din pong PNG na transparent. So, kung nakikita nyo, may white background yon, matatanggal yung mismong background. Okay? So, yung magiging background niya is transparent. So, ang gagawin ko po is PNG transparent po. So, click OK po. Lalo na kung isa-isa nyo pong in-illustrate yung isang scene, pwede nyo pong gamitin yung PNG transparent po. So, pag nag-save na po kayo, may lilitaw na naman kung saan nyo pwedeng i-open. So, dun sa view photos po ako. So, ayan na po. Napansin nyo lang po na may parang white background po siya. Ganun po yung nasa, ang tawag po doon sa cellphone po. Pero once na nilagay nyo po yan sa mismong Microsoft Word nyo po, wala na po yung white background. Kumbaga yung illustration nyo lang po. Okay, so back lang po. And then save na po natin. Save na lang po kasi automatic naman po nag-backup. So save na lang po. Saving. Okay, once na save po, pwede na po kayong mag-exit. Okay? Ayan po, dahil free app po siya, may mga ano po, advertisement po. So, okay, now, paano ko naman i-change yung file type po ng aking illustration to MDP po, papuntang PSD po. Kung gusto niyo po ng ganon, is punta lang po kayo sa My Gallery. Yung kaninang sinave nyo is naka-local save po yung mga yon. Okay, so punta lang kayo sa My Gallery. Makikita niyo yung mga illustrations nyo dyan. Ayan. Okay, so pwede nyo pong i-export yan as PSD sa Photoshop po. Okay? So, click nyo lang po yung 3 circle, yung may icon na ganito. Click nyo lang po. And then, pwede nyo pong i-upload yan. O kaya pwede nyo rin pong i-share. Okay? Kung gusto nyo naman pong i-share, ayan, click nyo lang po yung sharing button. Ito po, nandito po sa taas, share. And then, pwede nyo pong palitan yung file format po. So, MDP po yung raw data natin dito kasi Medibang po yung ginamit natin. So, pwede din natin i-transfer into PSD po. So, just click the file format. Ayan po. MDP, yung kaninang sinabi ko, mga raw data po to. Okay, sa PSD. So, pwede po nating i-save as PSD file format po. And then, i-share na po natin. So, kung gusto kong i-share yan, just select the file, yung share. Ay, wait lang po. Select ko muna yung file. Ito lang po yung i-share ko. Then, share. So, magsisave yan automatically. Okay, so pwede nyo nang i-upload dyan in your Drive, Google Drive po. Para po, much better po ilagay po sila sa Drive. Para po hindi i-consume ng mismong file po na ginawa natin, yung mismong storage ng phone nyo. So, save to Drive na lang po nun. Yan, pwede nyo palitan yung file name. Yan. Sample illustration. Okay, and then, Pili lang po kayo ng destination. Kung saan nyo pwedeng ilagay. Then select na lang natin. Then save. So mag-upload ng automatic yung mismong file. Okay po? So okay po. Okay, for your activity po is mag-illustrate po kayo kahit ano pong illustration. Yung madali lang po. And then kung ano po yung ginawa natin is gawin nyo rin po. Just follow po yung mga steps. So PNG po or JPG po, save nyo lang po. And then change the name of the image using this format po. So coloring, then BVRHS, and then yung name nyo po. So pwede nyo naman po i-transfer yung mismong illustration sa laptop po. Okay po? And then email it to acsubmission3@gmail.com po. And then kung ano po yung magiging subject natin, ganun din dun sa file type po natin. And then send na lang po. Okay, so we'll be featuring your artwork po after the webinar po. Okay po. So thank you po.
There you go. I think everybody enjoyed the interactive session with Ma'am Ida, na teacher turned vlogger po. Pwede na daw po kayong maging isang vlogger. And everybody was really thrilled in making out their illustrations. All you have to do is to submit, then we will be featuring probably tomorrow the top 3 best illustrations. At meron po kayong premyo galing po kay Ma'am Ida.
Ay, oh my.
Surprise din po yan kay Ma'am Ida. Maraming salamat. And Ma'am Ida, we will now be awarding the Certificate of Recognition. Republic of the Philippines, Department of Education, Schools Division of Angeles City awards this Certificate of Recognition to Ma'am Crislene Ida Mercado for being the resource speaker during the webinar on Modular and Self-Learning Kit for Private School Teachers held on June 17 to 19, 2020 via YouTube Ingenuity Classroom. Given this 18th day of June 2020 at YouTube Ingenuity Classroom. Signed, Maria Irelyn P. Tamayo, PhD, CESE, OIC Schools Division Superintendent. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Ida.
Okay, thank you po, ma'am.
And check your timepieces to all of our viewers. We have 46 minutes past 11 in the morning. Maybe high time for you to grab your lunch while we proceed to our next session. To speak for SLK Layouting is a master teacher at Northville 15 Integrated School, a finalist for the Regional Outstanding Teacher, and awarded as Outstanding Teacher for the division level. Please welcome Dr. Maria Remelin Cruz.
Hello po, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning pa. Kumusta po?
Konting minuto na lang po at good afternoon na. After that,
I hope na-tune ko rin natin mga participants.
yes po, Ma'am Rems.
Hello, ma'am.
After we have
Ayan,
had,
naririnig po ba ako?
yes po, Ma'am Rems. After we have had the talk of Ma'am Ida on illustrating, we shall now have your session on layouting. Tama po ba?
Yes po, ma'am. So the last part po ng ating module is yung pag-layout naman po.
There you go.
Paano
Presenting to you once again si Ma'am.
gagawin para libro?
Yes po.
Okay, so let me start na po. Allow me to share my screen. Ayan. Yan po. Nakikita po yung aking screen, ma'am? Okay, can we start na po? Nakikita po ba? Okay, so let's start po. So first on my topic is yung i-discuss ko po muna yung mga technical specifications of ADM modules. Maybe you are wondering po kung bakit ADM modules ang aking i-discuss. A while ago po, diniscuss po ni Sir Norwin yung about sa SLK. Now, to give some clarifications po, yung SLK is advisable to use by grade kindergarten to grade 3, while yung ADM module po natin is advisable to use by grade level 4 to senior high school po. Bakit po kaya ganon? Kasi po yung ating SLK, it's more, dahil bata pa yung ating mga estudyante, yung mga information na nilalagay natin sa module is bite size lang. Kumbaga, depende po dun sa mga students natin kung ano yung laman ng ating module. Kumbaga, kailangan naka-angkla din kung kaya ba ng estudyanteng to gamitin yung isang module na to. Now, for students na nasa high school, which is for grade 7 to senior high school, applicable na pong gamitin yung ADM module. Actually po, yung ADM module is intended po sa ating mga ALS. Pero dahil sa pandemic, ginamit na rin po siya as one way of primary instructional material for DepEd. So, allow me to present to you yung ating technical specification. Baka malito po kasi sila. So, ADM module po ang i-discuss. So, first, okay, what is the objective? So first, describe the different elements of ADM or FLO modules. And then second, identify the technical specification standards of the different elements of ADM module. Now, sa ating page set design and layout, ang ating paper size po is A4. Now, meron po tayong ditong tinatawag na orientation. Depende po yan kung anong grade level ang ginagawan natin ng module. For kindergarten, ang orientation na gagamitin is landscape, while for grades 1 to 12, portrait naman po ang kanyang gagamitin. Now, meron din po tayo dito, margin. We have to consider the margin. It should be in mirror margin. Later po, tuturo ko sa inyo kung paano siya gawing mirrors. Ito po yung ating gawin. Okay, next. What is the ideal number of pages? Ideally, the number of pages for ADM and SLK is around 20 to 32 pages. Even verse, kasi parang siyang dito, it should be divisible by 4. Okay, so minimum is 20, and then pwede po siyang mag-exceed ng 32 pages as long as divisible by 4 po siya and even numbers. Next. Ano nga ba yung itsura ng ating ADM front-outside cover? So baka malito po kayo. Ito po yung itsura ng ating front-outside cover for module, ADM mod. Okay, so meron po tayong tinatawag na level identifier, the DepEd logo, the subject area or the learning area, resource title, cover art, ADM logo, and the violator. Now, nagkakaiba po tayo, depende dahil nasa private sector po ang ating mga participants, pwede po silang gumawa ng sarili nilang cover art using Medibang. Okay? Next. Okay, so the front outside cover, ganito yung kanyang mga font size. So for the resource title, we have 40 for subject and 26 naman for the title. Ating kinder level identifier, ang kanyang size is 20 feet. And then, ating mga violator, ang size naman niya is 11. And then, area. Don't worry po, ibibigay po namin yung slide deck na to para meron po kayong idea kapag nagle-layout na po kayo. So, yung ating violator, babalik lang sa kanina. Ito po yan. Naka-position for dito sa ating ilalim. For the ADM module or ADM logo, pwede pong ilagay ninyo ang logo ng inyong school. Okay? Next is the background of the grade level identifier. Now, depende po sa inyo kung pwede kayong mag-set ng sarili nyong kulay per area. This one is the recommended color coding for DepEd. So for English, we have light blue, and then Filipino is dark blue. Science is orange, and then mathematics is green. For senior high school po, we will use black. Ayan po. So ito po senior high school po ang gagawa ng ADM module, hindi ganito magiging itsura niya. So it's like this. Okay po? And so on and so forth. So again, dahil nasa private sector po kayo, pwede po mag-set ng sarili nyong color combination per learning area. Alright, next is the copyright page. So for the copyright page, we have the resource title and the copyright year, kailan siya nabuo, copyright notice, the name of the copyright holder, the development team, so nandito po yung writer natin, illustrator, and even our layout artist. At saka yung ating printer's company name, address, and contact details. So you can modify this one. Depende po sa preference po ng school ninyo. Next is the copyright page. So yung font size and font type po is similar to this one. So it should be in 11 to 12 point para sa ating resource title. And then yung ibang part, which is this part, is around 9 to 11 feet. Okay? The title page. So sa title page naman po, we have the grade level identifier, the resource title, and the DepEd logo. So dito po sa DepEd logo, pwede pong yung logo ng school ninyo ang ilagay. While this one, yung ating grade level identifier and yung ating learning area, pwede pong kopyahin na lang natin kung ano yung nasa front cover as it is po siya. Even yung font size. The only difference is that kung sa front cover, ang ating grade level identifier ay nandito, pero dito po sa ating title page, dito na siya. Okay? Next. So ayan, sabi niya, the font type and size is the same with the styles used in the book cover. So copy-paste lang po. Next, the typography. Now, unlike sa SLK, ang recommended is Century Gothic. For ADM naman po, we have this one, the alphabeto for kinder to grade 3. Pero sa grade 4 to grade 12 po, ang recommended font family is Arial, Times New Roman, or Bookman Old Style. Okay? Now, you have to consider this one also, yung art-to-text ratio. The more na mas bata po ang inyong mga client or yung mga clientele natin, yung mga estudyante natin, like for example, kinder to grade 1, mas malaki po yung ratio ng art. Ibig sabihin, 65% of the page is more on illustration and then the text is 35% only. At habang tumatanda po yung ating mga clientele, like for example, for grades 5 to 12, mas maliit po yung mga illustrations and then mas marami siyang content or text. Okay? Next is the icons. So these icons are intended for key stage 1 and 2, while these icons are intended for key stage 3 and 4. So what are the key stage? Pag sinabi pong key stage 1, these are grades kinder to grade 3, while key stage 2, ito naman po yung mga grades 4 to 6. So ito po yung mga icons na recommended ng DepEd, pero pwede nyo pong i-modify sa inyo. For key stage 3 naman po, this one, ito po yung tinatawag nating grade 7 to 10. While key stage 4 naman po, ito naman po yung tinatawag nating senior high school, which is the grade 11 to 12. Okay, next, other text specification. So as a layout artist, kailangan i-consider din po natin to. There should be no page number for the copyright page, and the deleting space or yung spacing between the paragraph should be in 1.15 point. Subheads is 18 point to 8 point. And then spaces between an element title and element ending is double space. So later po, i-discuss natin kung ano yung magiging itsura niya. Other text specification for paragraphs. So there should be no one word or half a word at the last line of a paragraph, assuming this one. Kung estudyante ka, okay, at meron naiwan na isang word dun sa pinaka-last part ng iyong paragraph, medyo magtataka ka, ano kaya yung kasunod ng favorite na to? Okay? So, dapat po, ang gawin natin, i-enter na po natin yung favorite para magkaroon pa siya ng kasama. Yung parang hindi siya magiging single word lang siya sa baba. Okay? So, or pwedeng dagdagan yung content para may kasama yung pandesal dito sa baba. Next, the pages should not end with a hyphenated word. A maximum of 3 consecutive hyphenated words are allowed in a paragraph. Kung masyado pong marami yung hyphenated words, medyo mako-confuse po ang ating mga learners dahil dadalhin nila to sa bahay at kung walang guardian na nakaantabay sa kanya, medyo magkakaroon po siya ng confusion. Ano nga ba yung word na to? So, avoid po natin yung paggamit ng hyphenated words. So, again, the allowable maximum hyphenated word per paragraph is only 3. Next, ito po, another things to consider. Pages should not have bad breaks which affect readability. So meron po tayo dito example. This is the end of a page. Ang tawag dito is orphan. So particularly if you publish reference books, histories, ito na po yung kasunod niya. So yung part na to, ang tawag po dito is widow. Yung part na to. This one is orphan. Now, as a reader, kung estudyante ka, magtataka ka, ano kaya yung kasunod ng histories na to? So, kapag ganyan na po yung case, it's better na i-enter nyo na po yung particular dito sa next page para magkasama na po silang dalawa. Okay? Next, we have this one. Use boldface for foreign words or technical terms being defined only at first mention. Set these words in regular format for the rest of the times they are used. So kung unang babanggitin pa lang yung isang particular na word or terms, it should be in boldface. Pero kung babanggitin na naman po siya sa ibang content, magiging regular na po siya. Okay? Next, back matter. So, sa ADM module, meron din po tinatawag na answer key, sanggunihan, or references, and the back outside cover. So, pasadahan po natin. Sa ADM module, ang ating answer key ay nakabaliktad. Okay? It contains answers to all the activities. Key to correction should be written upside down in font size 9. Okay? Later po, tuturo ko kung paano siya gawing baliktad. Okay, next. Sanggunian references. So, ang gagamitin po natin sa mga references natin is the Chicago Manual of Style 17th edition. So, later po using our software na ipipresent mamaya, tuturuan kayo kung paano gamitin yung paggawa ng references. Okay? And then, the back outside cover. Okay, so this one. Ang size po niya is 12 point and ang kanyang font type is Arial. Now, in your case, kung meron po kayong donor sa mga pagpaprint ng inyong mga modules, so pwede nyo rin pong ilagay at the bottom of this feedback note. Okay po? So these are all lifted from the Alternative Delivery Mode Learning Resources Standards as of May 8, 2020. Now, we're done with the technical specification. Let's proceed now to the software. I hope na-download nyo na po yung ating activity sheet and I hope meron po kayong katabing laptop sa inyong tabi. Okay? So that we can proceed now. Okay. So, we will create a layout using Microsoft Word. Maybe you are wondering bakit Microsoft Word? Kasi Microsoft Word is the most familiar software for teachers. So ito po yung ginagamit natin usually to create reports, test papers, and so on and so forth. Although meron pong advisable na gamitin din like Adobe InDesign, pero pero yun po ay medyo magkakaroon lang ng konting practice pa. Okay, maraming time para ma-practice talaga yung ating Adobe InDesign. Pero kung familiar na po kayo sa Microsoft Word, mas mapapadali po yung ating buhay sa pag-create ng ADM module kasi po very familiar na yung software na to sa atin. Alright? So what are the objectives? So it should the end of the session, the participants are expected to perform different layout designs such as paper size, orientation, and margin. Use page breaks, section breaks, and page numbering correctly. Apply different indentation formats and alignment tabs. Apply 3 main options in text wrapping. Apply style gallery in text formatting. Use navigation frame for easily access of contents and apply auto-generated citation and bibliography. Okay, so let's proceed na po. Siguro po, open po natin yung ating Microsoft Word. For our activity po, ayan. Kung hindi nyo pa po na-download yung activity sheet na binigay ko po, pwede nyo pong i-visit ito, tapos i-download nyo po yung dalawang file doon. Meron po tayong activity sheet and 1 image. So maybe bibigyan ko po kayo around 30 seconds para mag-prepare. Okay. Ayan. So yung sinend ko po sa ating Google Drive ay ito. So this is just an example of our activity sheet para po nakaka-follow po lahat habang nagdi-discuss ako. Okay? So let's start. Okay na po. Pwede na po tayong mag-start. Okay. So pwede na tayong mag-start. So what is Microsoft Word? Gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, it is used to create professional quality documents, reports, letters, and resume. So unlike the other softwares, meron din po itong spell checks, grammar check, text and font formatting, HTML support, image support, advanced page layout, and more. Now, bakit po Microsoft Word? So this is because we are familiar na po dito sa software, familiarity of use. Hindi na po mag-a-adjust kung paano mag-layout. And then, easy access of action for editors. So, in case kapag check po sa inyong mga boss kung okay na at kung meron siyang gustong i-bag at ng comment. So, mas madali po sa kanilagay ng comment as well as at mga writers. And even high students can accommodate Microsoft Word. So this is the default of Microsoft Word. We have the tabs. The active tab, depende po kung ano yung nakaklik dito sa ating menu bar. We also have the ribbon, ito, rulers, document header, the document area wherein button and the zoom style. Magpo-focus tayo dito sa ating natawag na ribbon. So, this ribbon. The ribbon is a set of bars at the window in Office programs designed to help you quickly find the content you need to complete a task. So, magpo-focus po tayo sa home, insert, layout, references, and view. Okay? Now, these are the following tips and tricks. Okay, so open po natin yung ating Microsoft Word or yung activity sheet na binigay ko po sa inyo. I hope nakakasunod pa rin po. Okay. Anyway, this is recorded naman po. So, pwede natin balikan kung medyo mabilis ang aking pagsasalita. Okay, let's start. So when you create your own module, okay, the first thing that you need to do is to go to the page layout. Ito po muna dapat ang ating unang gagawin as layout artist. Isi-set muna natin kung ano yung size, the margin, the orientation, and so on and so forth. So go to the page layout. Ito. Okay. And then first thing to do is to click the size. Now, for ADM module, ang recommended size is A4. Now, kung wala man po yung A4 dito, just click more pages, paper sizes. So, for this particular activity, dahil nandito naman po yung A4, so i-click natin si A4. So, that is for size. Now, for the orientation, we only have two orientation, portrait or landscape. Now, gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, kapag kindergarten, ang ating paper orientation is landscape. Pero kapag grade 1 to 12 na po yan, ang ating paper orientation is portrait. So for this particular activity, I will use portrait. And then the last one is what we call margin. Sa margin, please take note of this. So meron tayo dito mirrored, normal, narrow, moderate. Kailangan po i-consider natin yung ating tinatawag na inside and outside kasi magiging libro siya. So we will use mirrored. Okay po? So that is the first thing that we need to do. Naka A4, portrait, and then mirrored. Kung wala po yung mirror dito, just auto margins, and then ito lang po yung multiple pages into mirror margin, this one. Okay? Next, meron din po tayo dito tinatawag na paragraph. Sa paggawa po ng ADM module, it should be 1.15. So, ano pong gagawin natin? Gagawin natin, i-click natin yung part na to. Click. And then, meron po tayo dito line spacing. It should be multiple. Tapos, gawin natin tong 1.15. Yan, 1.15. Pag okay na po, just click okay. So, that's it. So, tapos na po tayo sa ating paper size, orientation, margin. And then, now let's proceed naman po. Ito. Ayan, tapos na po yan. Ito, this one. Did you know that you can have multiple page setup just like in the screenshots below? So, kung mapapansin nyo dito sa ating slide deck, yung isang page ay naka-portrait, yung isa naman ay naka-landscape. We can do that, okay? Paano? Using page break and section break. So what is page break? So the page break tool is a Microsoft Word is a tool in Microsoft Word that gives you control over where one page ends and the next one begins. So paano siya gagamitin? So balik po ako sa Microsoft Word natin. Ayan. So this one, yung activity sheet natin, halimbawa, okay, halimbawa ito po, this one. Ang gusto ko, see what I need to know, this one, ay sa next page na siya. So, usually, ang ginagawa po natin, ini-enter natin, ganyan. Okay? Tama po ba? So, ini-enter natin, which is kapag in-evaluate po yan ng mga layout artists, hindi po dapat ganyan yung ating maging approach. So, anong gagawin? Pag highlight kasi yan, ito po yung mga lines na in-enter natin kanina. So, anong mangyayari? Ano ba yung difference? Ano ba yung magiging effect niya kung ganito yung ginawa nating approach? So, halimbawa, naglagay ako dito. Si writer, gusto niya, meron pa ring picture dito. Halimbawa, insert. Halimbawa, nag-insert ako ng smiley. And then, naka-align. Ayan. Kung mapapansin niyo po, nung nag-insert ako ng image, nag-adjust yung ating paper. So, mag-a-adjust na po yan hanggang sa pinaka-ilalim. Kung ang ginawa natin ay nag-enter po tayo. So, paano po natin i-avoid yung yan? So, alisin po natin ulit to. I-delete ko lang to. Ibabalik ko siya sa dati. So, backspace. Kanina po, ganito siya. So we can do that using our page break. So saan makikita si page break? Makikita po ang page break kay page layout. Just click page layout. And then meron kayo dito breaks. So meron tayong dalawang option, page break and section break. So for page break, we will use page break page. So pag clinic ko po to, automatically mag-enter na siya dito sa next page. Now, pag naglagay ako ng image dito, insert ulit, or ng shape, yung kanina, kahit anong gawin ko dito, hindi na mag-a-adjust ang ating layout dito sa baba kasi naka-page break po siya. Okay? Sana po malinaw po yon. Okay? Next po. Okay. The next one naman po, paano naman ang difference, okay, balik po ako dito, kapag section break. Section break are similar to page break, but they add an invisible divide in a document that allows you to apply different formatting to different sections. This is useful if you want to use distinct page numbering styles or character headers from different parts of a document. So this one is applicable kapag naglalagay na po tayo ng page number sa ating module. So paano po siya gagawin? So tignan niyo po muna kung paano ko siya gagawin, and then later on, kayo po, i-practice niyo po kung paano siya gawin. So first, paano siya i-divide? I-divide muna po natin yung ating module. Okay, for example, this one. These are the preliminaries. So usually yung mga preliminaries natin, ang nakalagay po dyan ay mga tinatawag na Roman numeral page. Okay? So ang gawin natin dito sa introductory message, gagawin po natin, bababa ko lang, lalagay ko siya. Pick page layout, and then break. Meron po dito section break. Just click next page. Yan. Ano pa po ba? Okay. Meron din tayong yung part na to. Bawa ito, yung ating feedback note, wala po siyang tinatawag na page number. So, ipi-break din po natin yan. Break. And then, next page. So, ayan. Meron na po tayong ginawang page break. Paano ko makikita na nagkaroon ako ng page break? So, kapag dinouble click niyo po yan, double click sa baba, this one. Ayan. Kung mapapansin niyo po, yung ating footer section 1, meron din tayong footer section 2. So, ibig sabihin, this one, you can edit the layout of this without affecting the layout of your section page. Okay? So, halimbawa, maglalagay po ako ng page number. Okay? Lalagay ako ng page number. Just click page number. Dito po na tayo, design, page number. And then, meron tayo dito, bottom of page. So, sa ating full module, yung mga pages number natin is naka-center. So, i-click lang po natin yan. Ayan. So, lalakihan ko lang po yung font para mas makita ng ating mga viewers. Ayan. Ayan. I hope nakikita po. Ayan. So, this is our page number. Kung mapapansin nyo po, nung pinutol ko yung introductory message using section break, ayan po, nagsimula ulit siya ng page 1. So, anong gagawin ko dito sa part na to? Okay? So, ang gagawin ko sa part na to, ito yung part na Roman numerals. So, gagawin ko lang, highlight, and then dito sa design, okay. Sige po, highlight, ayan. Meron po kayo ditong link to previous. Okay? Nandito po ako sa introductory message. Kasi dito, magi-start ang ating numbering. So, highlight ko po yung part na to. Okay? Meron kayong makikita ditong link to previews. Okay? I-click nyo po yon para hindi po mag-connect yung dalawang page. So, click nyo lang yan. So, ang mangyayari ganito po. Mapapansin nyo walang nangyari. Pero, pag inalis nyo po itong part na to, remove ko to, apply. Mawawala yung page number dito sa page na to, pero dito mariretain. Okay po? Ayan. So, yung part kasi na to, wala siyang mga page number. Ayan. So, yan po yan. Para gawing Hindu. Okay? So, ang gagawin lang, double click ulit yung part nito. Yan po, yung part nito is Hindu-Arabic, yung page 1 to this page. So, ang gagawin, page number. So, meron tayo dito format page numbers. And then, meron tayo ditong Roman numerals. And then, we can start at what page. So, pwedeng halimbawa yung part na page 2. So, gawin po natin siyang 2. So, siya na mismo ang mag-a-adjust. So, just click OK. Ayan po. Pag close natin yung header natin, ang mangyayari, ayun. So, nag-start siya dun sa ating Roman numeral number 2 hanggang 3, 4. Okay? So, yun po yung paggamit ng ating tinatawag na section break. So, usable po siya kapag gumagamit na kayo ng page numbering at pag-setup ng ibang font sa ating mga pages. Next, the indentation and first line indent. So, this one naman is usable kung meron kang kinuhang quotation or block quotation na tinatawag. Okay, pwede na gamitin yung tinatawag na indentation and first line indent. So, for this particular activity, ito po, gagawin ko, halimbawa, this one, context clues. Okay, yan po. So, halimbawa, this case po, kunwari, ito yung quotation na kinuha natin from Microsoft, from Google, and integrate natin sa ating module. So, mapapansin niyo po sa ating rulers, meron po tayo dito mga tabs, okay, or yung tabs. So, ang gagawin, idadrag lang po yan habang naka-highlight yung paragraph, idadrag lang po yan. Ayan. Pwede natin i-adjust dyan. And then this one, idadrag na naman po papunta dito. Ayan. Without affecting the first paragraph na nauna sa kanya. So, yun po yung function ng ating indentation and first line indent. Okay, I hope nakakasunod pa rin po. Okay, next. Okay, the next one is what we call tabs. Tabs in Word are used to align text in your document. You can use the default tabs in Word or create your own tabs. The tab you create will be indicated on the ruler. You can create left tabs, right tabs, center tabs, decimal tabs, and bar tabs. So, paano po gagamitin yung mga tabs? So, usually, ginagamit po natin yan sa module natin kapag nandito tayo sa ating development team, dun sa copyright page. Kung mapapansin niyo po yung sample dito, okay, naka-align po sila. Ito, sample lang po to. So, gagawa tayo. Alisin ko lang to. Paano ako gagawa ng ganitong layout? Okay, using the tabs. Okay, so paano po siya gawin? Mapapansin niyo po yung ruler natin dito. Ito, yung part na to. This is our ruler. So, ang gagawin, i-click lang po. I-click ko dito. And then, yung isa dito. Yan. Kung mapapansin niyo po, meron dalawang naka-left na tab. Okay, pwede rin natin edit yan. Ang gagawin lang po, okay, ito double click. Double click lang po again. Pag nag-double click, lilitaw yung part na to. Wait lang. So again, double click. Ayaw. Wait lang po ah. Okay, ayaw. Kakaroon ng ayan. So, pag no-click na yan, meron tayo ditong alignment. We have left, center, and right. So, since yung sample po natin dito, naka-right align po sila, so we will follow this. We will use right. Okay? And then click OK. So, paano na siya gagamitin? So, pag nag-type ako ngayon, just press tab, then type writer, colon, then tab again, Merlin and the Lusong. Next, Illustrator, tab muna, Illustrator, then tab again, Arlan B. Dimatacor. Layout artist, so tab again, layout artist, tab, and then J.H. Season. And so mapansin nyo, yung tabs sa taas, pwede nyo layout yung inyong mga development team na ganito yung format. Okay? So, para may idea po kayo kung paano gamitin yung mga tabs dito sa ating ruler. Okay? Next, the text wrapping. Ayan. So, malapit na po tayong matapos. Konting tiis na lang po. Okay, we have the text wrapping. Okay, mag-insert po ako ngayon ng example ng image na dinownload ko na rin po sa Google na pwede nyo pag-practicean. For example, sige po, para hindi tayo malito, gagawa na lang ako ng bagong document. So, kunwari, ito yung aking content para po mabilisan. So, mag-insert po ako ngayon ng image. So, paano mag-insert ng image? All you have to do is to click Insert, Pictures, and then, punta po kayo kung saan nyo kukunin yung or na-save yung inyong images. For this particular activity, nakasave siya sa ating folder na layout artist, and then, click ko po siya. So, by default po, ito po yung aking image. So, paano gagamitin yung text wrapping na tinatawag? By default, yung layout option natin is naka-inline with text. Anong ibig sabihin po nito? Naka-inline with text siya kapag nilagay mo siya, liitan lang ng konti. Ayan. Pag nilagay mo yung image mo papunta dito sa inyong content, okay, kahit saan mo yung ilagay yan, basically, meron na siya agad, dun sa pinakabottom niya, meron na siyang agad nakasunod na text. At medyo mahirap yung pagdadrag kapag naka-default po siya na inline with text. Now, meron pa tayong different option. Okay? So, ano yung mga option na yon? Meron tayong text wrapping na tinatawag na square. Okay? Ito, yung square na to. Pag click niyo po yan, ang mangyayari, parang magkakaroon siya ng invisible na rectangle na hindi pwedeng, kumbaga ang mga text ang mag-a-adjust sa kanya. Pansinin niyo po kung ano yung nangyayari. So, parang meron siyang invisible box or rectangular box dito sa ating image. Okay? I hope nakakasunod pa rin kahit medyo gutom na po yung iba. Okay, so that is square. Now we also have this one, tight at saka true. This one, halos parehas lang po yung tight and true. Okay, para mas maintindihan po ninyo, lagay ko muna dito. Ano nga ba yung difference ng tight and true? Okay, so mag-insert ako dito ng star. For example, asan ba ang ating star? Okay, meron ba tayo dito? Okay, for example, this one. Ayan. So, ang difference po ng tight, okay, ito po yung ganyang gagawin. Ayan. Tight po yan. And then we also have true. Kung mapapansin ninyo, kapag true siya, kung gaano kanipis, okay, yung ating image, ipa-follow niya yung kanyang shape. So, yung mga text, mag-a-adjust din po siya. Now, pwede nating i-edit yung mga points na tinatawag sa ating mga images. Okay, for example, click nyo lang po to. Ito po, applicable lang siya kapag ang ginamit nyong text wrapping is tight and true. So, paano? Click the image. So, kapag na-click na po yung image, lilitaw tong format. And then, meron tayo dito text wrap. Ayan. Meron tayo dito tinatawag na edit wrap points. Okay? I-click nyo lang po yon. Pag lumitaw yan, ito po yung mangyayari. Anong ibig sabihin ng mga points na to? So, pwede nyo pong i-adjust yan. Okay? Drag nyo lang po using your mouse. Yan. So, siya mismo yung mag-a-adjust. Yung mga text natin sa Word, siya mismo mag-a-adjust. Ayan. So, halimbawa, okay na yan. Ayan. Kapag na-true siya, ganyan po. Meron pang text sa gitna. Pero pag type, maalis na yan. So, yun po yung difference ng dalawa. Pinakita ko lang po yung option na to. Okay? And then, sige po, balik na tayo sa ating next text wrapping option. We have top and bottom. So, paano yung itsura niya? Kapag images siya, pag using text wrapping top and bottom, automatically, yung mga text ay pupunta sa taas at saka pupunta sa both sides. Yung ating natawag na square. Sa square po kasi, as literal square, siya po yung mag-adjust. Okay? And bottom. Next, we have the behind text. So, behind text naman po, usually, pwede natin gamitin niya para watermark. For example, gusto ng mga Google, meron siyang pangalan ninyo para hindi as in talagang sa inyo po siya. So, pwede nating gawin yung text na yun as behind text. Likewise, meron tayong in front of text. So, ibig sabihin, kapag nag-in front of text naman po tayo, matatambunan naman po yung text na nasa ilalim. Just like this one. Ayan, natambunan po siya. Okay? So, that is for our text wrapping. And by the way po, okay, additional info lang po. Ito, nagagawa na rin po ng ating Microsoft Word. Okay, ito po kasing ating sample image. By default, meron po talaga siyang background na white. Dito. Okay, so paano ko aalisin? Okay, I will use type. Paano ko aalisin yung white background to? So, meron na pong kakayahan ang Microsoft Word na alisin yung mga background na to. So, paano? All you have to do is to click your image, go to the Format tab. Ayan, ito po. Hindi po lilitaw yung Format tab kung hindi nakaklik ang inyong image. So, make sure nakaklik po yung ating image, Format. And then, meron tayo dito, Remove Background. So, kiklik nyo lang po yan. Okay, lilitaw po yung part na to. So, anong function remove background? Yung kulay pink na nakikita niyo po, ayan. Ito yung part na maaalis. So, pwede niyo pong i-adjust yan. Okay. Ayan. Adjust natin hanggang dito. Now, kung mapapansin niyo po, meron pa ring kulay pink dito. Ibig sabihin, kapag nag-keep changes ako, mawawala din yung part na to. So, paano ko mariretain yung part na to? All you have to do is to click Mark Areas to Keep. So, ito, yung part na to. Just click that one. And then, pwede ka mag-drawing ng line dito. Yan. Pag nag-white na siya, ibig sabihin, mariretain na po yan. Tsaka yung part na to. Tsaka to. Pag okay na po, all you have to do is to keep changes. So, kung mapapansin ninyo, kanina, may white pa dito, kaya yung text nasa side lang. Pero dahil inalis po natin yung background, so, ginaya niya using type yung ating text. Ayan, magagamit po natin yan kapag nagle-layout na po tayo. Okay? Next, ayan, we're done with the text wrapping. Last two. Last three pala. Yan. We have styles. The style gallery provides an easy way to access the style available or the ones already being used within your doc style para lang po mas para hindi po tayo laging nag-change ng font size sa ating mga text. So, gawin na po natin siyang sarili nating style. So, paano? All you have to do is to click Gallery Style. And then, meron tayo dito, Create Style. Okay. So, halimbawa, this is for activity title. And then, just click Modify. Pag na-modify na po, meron tayo dito, Style Based On. Ang gagawin po natin, i-click natin yung heading 1 kasi merong function to later on sa ating navigation. So next is, ano po ba yung size ng ating activity? Yung halimbawa, what do I need to know? Alamin, subukin. So we will use the Bookman Old Style. Ang size niya is 18. Tapos ang kulay niya is black. And then, okay. So kung mapapansin niyo po, nag-save siya. Ayun o, activity title. Now, this time, gagawa naman ako para sa ating content. So, I will create another style. So, ADM content and modify. So, this one, heading number 8. Ito ang natin ang font size 7, pero ang kanyang kulay is black pa rin. Okay, so then okay. So meron tayong dalawa, activity title and ADM content. So paano natin gagamitin yan? Pag meron na yung styles, yung dalawang to, mas easy sa ating maglagay ng font. For example, what I need to know, highlight ko lang yan, click activity title. What I know, activity title. So kung mapapansin niyo, mas mapapagaan po yung ating trabaho as a layout artist. What's in, ito, activity title din ito. So click. Yan. So gagayahin niya yung font. How about the content? So for the content, halimbawa ito, highlight, ADM content. Yan. Highlight, then ADM content, and so on and so forth. So, lahat ng yan, okay, magagawa natin, depende sa style na gusto nyo. As layout artist, kailangan pong gamitin natin itong ating tinatawag na style gallery para mas madali po yung ating pag-set ng mga sizes, ng mga font styles, and so on and so forth. Next, we have the navigation pane. Last two na po. Last two topic na lang. The navigation pane. Ito naman ang ginagamit natin kapag tayo ay nag-search ng mga content natin sa ating module. For example, paano natin siya i-navigate? All you have to do is to click view. And then meron tayo dito navigation pane. Click nyo lang po yan. Lilitaw ngayon to. Now, ang kagandahan po ng styles, kapag ginamit mo siya, ito po, kapag headings, kanina po, sinet natin siya as heading, lahat ng merong heading ay ilagay niya dito. So, mas madali mo na siyang mananavigate. Okay? Pwede rin by pages. Okay, about page 2, page 3. Depende kung ano yung hinahanap mo. Or, you can also type kung ano yung hinahanap mo. Halimbawa, answer key. So, lilitaw po yan sa ating result. So, that is the function of our navigation pane. Okay? So, last part po, ay last two. Okay? Ito po, paano gagawin na yung answer key ay nakabaliktad? Okay? So, kapag nasa module po tayo, lahat po ng mga answer key ay dapat nakabaliktad. Ano pong gagawin? So, mag-example lang po ako. So, mag-create ko ng bago. So, ang gagawin lang po natin, you have to do is click insert, shapes, then text box. Pag meron na tayong text box, halimbawa answer key. So, halimbawa, ito 1, A, number 2 is B, C, and then B. So, assuming po, ito po yung mga answer key. So, kung mapapansin niyo po sa ating text box, meron po siyang anchor point dito. So, pwede nating iikot yan. Yan, dadrag niyo lang pababa. And then, straight natin. Yan po. So, magiging baliktad na po yung ating mga answers key. Pero pag nag-edit kayo, automatically mag-adjust po siya. Pero pag na-print po siya, ayan, baliktad po siya. Okay? And of course, last one is the references. So, paano tayo gagawa ng references? Okay, so madali lang po yan sa ating Microsoft Word. So, last part na po to. So, all you have to do is to click references. Meron po tayo dito, gaya ng sinabi ko, ang gagamitin po natin ay Chicago. So, although meron po tayong APA and so on and so forth. So, sa mga modules, ang ginagamit po ay Chicago. And then, gagawa po tayo ng add new source. So, lilitaw po to. Saan nanggaling yung source na kinuha ninyo? Halimbawa, nanggaling siya sa book. Anong name ng author? For example, Noel Recanit. Title, Ang Panday. Year is 2019. City, Angeles City. And then publisher, halimbawa, The Creative Minds. Now, if you want to add more, ang gagawin nyo lang po, just click Show All Bibliography Fields. Lilitaw po lahat ng mga fields. Pero tandaan po natin, ito lang yung mga recommended fields, yung merong asterisk. Kung gusto nyo pong lagyan ng editor, pwede rin po, halimbawa, Glenn Sarmiento. Pag okay na po yan, just click OK. Add another. Okay, add new source. Halimbawa, book ulit. Author is si Ma'am Glenn Sarmiento. Ang title naman niya is si Kiko. Okay. 2020. And then Angeles City. Then publisher is The Creative Minds. Ayan. Pag okay na po yan, ito na lang ang gagawin natin. Meron po tayo ditong bibliography. Just click references. Automatically, yung tinype po natin kanina, siya na yung magsiset ng mga references natin. Naka-style na po siya sa ating Chicago. So, yun po yung aking part. So, I hope meron po kayong natutunan kahit papano, kahit gutom na po tayong lahat. Okay, so that's all po. And thank you. Ayan.
Maraming salamat po. Kami po ay busog sa karunungan sa araw na ito. Maraming salamat again. That was Dr. Maria Remelin Cruz, our resource speaker on layouting. Ma'am, kindly receive our certificate of recognition. And the citation reads, Republic of the Philippines Department of Education Schools Division of Angeles City awards this certificate of recognition to Dr. Maria Remelin G. Cruz for being the resource speaker during the webinar on Modular and Self-Learning Kit for Private School Teachers held on June 17 to 19, 2020 via YouTube Ingenuity Classroom. Given this 18th day of June 2020 at YouTube Ingenuity Classroom. Signed, Maria Irelyn P. Tamayo, PhD, CESE, OIC Schools Division Superintendent. Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Rems.
Thank you po. Thank you so much po, Ma'am Tet.
And to our fellow educators, that concludes day 2 of our webinar. Again, thank you, Sir Norwin, Ma'am Ida, and Ma'am Rems for breezing us through the basics of SLK and how to come up with this learning resource following the correct layout with adding attractive illustrations. Talking about your illustrations, kindly submit your workshop output to acsubmission3@gmail.com. gmail.com. And we would like to hear your comments. Give us your feedback via our evaluation. This will now be flashed to your screens. This will be through our Google Docs. Until then, I'll see you again tomorrow for the last day of our webinar on Module and Self-Learning Kit. Thank you. Have a pleasant day ahead, everyone. Still being flashed on your screen. This will now be open, and this will be open until 12 midnight. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
All right.
Yay.